We are recording. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this discussion. Chosen One here, your host. We will be discussing the Batman trailer directed by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson. Was released yesterday. Got a fresh look. My inbox was actually blowing up from 5 or 6 people saying that this thing was released, and then I got a few texts, so I checked it out. We've got with us here today discussing the trailer in depth, Sir Pete Hemmingsley. Also,
Yes,
go ahead.
yes, that's me, the Right Honourable Sir Pete Hemmingsley here. Hi.
Mm-hmm. Have you been knighted yet?
Well, I'm still waiting. It's coming in the post apparently, so I'm still waiting.
Oh, so they don't do the whole sword and shoulder thing anymore?
Yeah, but I've got to get my official invite, so I'm waiting for the invite. Once that gets over, then I'll be, hot-footing it over to Buckingham Palace.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
And the Queen will do it, or will it be someone else?
I'll be the Queen, obviously, because it is me. So, yeah, it's obviously the Queen.
Yeah. Cool. All right. And also, we have BatVal.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. So yeah, guys, I watched this trailer, and I was definitely, when you see something that comes out of nowhere and shakes the fan base in the way that this did, I think, last night. You're always interested to see certain people's takes of what they saw, what's out, what's released, just to see if you missed anything. So these two individuals, their opinions anyway, I value very highly. So I definitely, you two were definitely the top of my list as far as the two people who I wanted to hear from first. Regarding.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Chosen One.
No problem.
Thank you, sir.
And yeah, what I will say is this before we get into the meat of it. My opinion now, I think, is cemented as opposed to what my original opinion of this was yesterday. And I'm interested to see where you two are at regarding what you saw, and if you could take anything away from this, just, if you have, what should I say, how you sort of get little bits of information and then you can sort of fill in the gaps, as far as what you are pretty sure you're going to see in the film based off of what they gave you. I mean, that's sort of the tree that I'm barking up under. And these are things that I haven't really heard anyone mention, but BatVal and I had a conversation before about, just being able to see an image, and then that could sort of be the seed to create an entire story. There were things that I saw, there are things that I heard that sort of put me on the right track as far as what I think they're going to do and what I'm pretty sure they're going to do in this film. So I'm interested to see if you guys had any sort of theories based off of what you saw, as far as where they're going to go with this as well. Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, I'd like to hear what. I mean, look, I generally just like to hear what people have to say before I sort of gather my thoughts. So, I mean, BatVal, if you want to go, I'll just hang about and sort of get the full flavor of what you thought about it.
Well, two quick things I want to make first. Shane Black, the writer of Lethal Weapon, he once said that when you watch a trailer, which is usually 1.5 to 2 minutes, you get limited scenes of a movie and your brain fills in the rest of the movie. And usually our brains fill in the rest of the movie based off our experience and our own imagination. So then when you go see the movie, how satisfied or disappointed you are is a direct result of how big the gap between what your brain filled in when you saw the trailer is and what you got when you actually saw the movie is. So I think that's an interesting point, because this is a very strong trailer, but that doesn't mean it'll be a strong movie, because we're filling in the blanks based off the 2 minutes that we saw. I have some mixed opinions. I like a lot in it. I want to talk about the individuals, and I'm going to go into that a little bit more later about who's involved in the project, and how I feel about each of them. But the main thing I was looking for was Pattinson as Batman, Pattinson in the suit, and Pattinson's Batman voice, and what the tone and the atmosphere of the trailer will be. And just to keep it real simple, for me, the trailer accomplished what it's supposed to accomplish. It took me from wondering and needing to see a trailer to have an idea to wanting to go see the movie. So that's my initial simplistic reaction. It does its job. It makes me want to go see the movie. But I am 50-50 on the specifics, and I'm going to save that for a little bit later just because it's going to take some more depth.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really a good thing to go, like, just to give an overview, then obviously we can go into, because I mean, I've got literally like so much stuff to say about this that I'll just give you my broad strokes as well, and I mean, for me, I mean, what I'd start off with, because I had a chat with Have Hope, literally, because he actually, I mean, similar to you, Chosen One, he alerted me to this thing. It came out of nowhere, because obviously I'm not following all this online DC Comic Con conventions, all the stuff that I just don't. I just like whatever, So basically, he said it was out, and I was like, okay. But I mean, even about a few months ago, I had a chat with Have Hope and with the Merc, and I told them what I thought was going to happen. I told them what my views are, and my broad stroke, the biggest broad stroke I'd give you is there are a bunch of people in Hollywood that I call the Goon Gang. Okay, there are a couple of people that I call them the Goon Gang. And what the Goon Gang do is they think that they can force a scenario where they will almost force Hollywood to accept them as the successors to the Golden Gang, which was De Palma, Scorsese, Lucas, Spielberg, Francis Ford, those guys. There's a very famous picture of all of them sat in a restaurant. That for me was the Golden Gang. And I think the Golden Gang, they kind of spoilt us. We kind of thought that, oh, this is what movies are, like, oh, this is what they're supposed to be. What I've come to realize is that maybe we got lucky. We just happen to be living in a time of particularly special artists. So the Goon Gang have a very loose connection to the Golden Gang. And the Goon Gang is comprised of Orky, Kurtzman, Lindelof, Abrams, Reeves, and their resident band player, Giacchino. And these guys, if you do your research and you see what they've been doing in Hollywood, they're just running around, grazing fields that don't belong to them, and exploiting franchises that weren't made by them, and polluting them and destroying them, and then moving on. That's what they do. So, and obviously, that Abrams has now, strategically placed himself ready to go into war, to do what he did to Star Wars to DC. He strategically placed himself with him and his wife and everything there. So he's set to go. Maybe he'll do his own Superman or whatever you call it. But before he does that, he's got his boy, his childhood friend who used to do editing and stuff with Spielberg since they were like 12 years old, Matt Reeves, in place with Batman. So that's how this guy, so he's already got his runway set. So he's done his crap with Star Trek. He's done his crap with Star Wars. He's now ready to get going with them, DC. And the trick is that the fans, the audience, daft as they always are going to let him do it, because they've let him do it with 2 franchises. So when I knew that Reeves was going to do Batman, I was like, what do you think he's going to do? We've seen his Apes movie. We've seen Cloverfield. You know that when he makes his movie, he's going to cast his movie in a particular way, a bit similar to how Abrams cast it. It's pretty bland. It's not rubbish, and that's the crucial thing. It isn't rubbish. And he's always going to make a couple of decisions that are actually quite good. But ultimately, it's bland. And it's going to look a lot like the Apes movies. That's going to happen. But what you also know is going to happen is that this man does not understand what he's doing. Exactly the same as his best mates, J.J. Abrams. So what is going to happen, just like J.J. with that Force Awakens trailer, is you're going to see a trailer that is going to seem like it's the dog's bollocks. That's what's going to happen. He's going to put out a trailer that is going to seem like it's really great. But if you have the aptitude or the disposition to take a step back and, digest what you've seen, you just might come to the conclusion. You just might. Okay, this is just my very humble opinion. Who am I? I'm just a man. you just might come to the opinion that you've been hoodwinked. So, you know, and to do a good hoodwink, similar to what and let's just, I'm not going to give it too much, but Chosen, I hope you realize that the world is slowly coming to understand with Tenet what I've been saying for the last 10, 12, 13 years. The world is beginning to get to understand what Nolan, the daylight robbery, the bamboozle this guy has run. I remember I told you something called the I-squared positive intellectual intimidation. I said that about 10 years ago.
Yes.
The world is coming to understand that now. Now, what is happening with Reeves is he's pulling the same game his friend Abrams pulled in Force Awakens. So it seems great. So it's all exciting, blah, blah, blah. But then you stop and think that, what did I just watch? And then you have what I call an identity, a franchise identity crisis, which is what Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man had. You see, when Hollywood gets greedy and you decide you're going to bring out a Spider-Man, within about 2 weeks of the last Spider-Man, the director finds himself in a very unhappy conundrum, because it is Spider-Man, but he has to justify its existence and differentiate it. Mm-hmm. What happens then? You end up with a Frankensteinian product that is trying so hard to be different that it ends up being a warped vision of what Spider-Man is, which is what Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was. And I'm seeing the exact same thing with Matt Reeves. With Matt Reeves' Batman, you're going to have Zack Snyder's Frankenstein Justice League that's coming out next year. You're going to have Flashback that's going to have Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck, who, by the way, told us he was done. He said, oh, he's finished, he's blah, 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 but he's back again because we knew he would be. So he's back to do new footage for Flash movie. So you're going to have Keaton, Affleck, and Pattinson all in this. So you have an identity crisis. So what we now have with Pattinson's Batman is the suit makes no sense because you're so trying to be different. You've tumbled into this weird place where you've got a suit that it just makes no sense. It makes it makes no sense. Well, so and then you've got a Batmobile that makes no sense. Mm-hmm. And you can also obviously see that he's borrowed a lot from Aronofsky's draft, from what Aronofsky wanted to do a long time ago.
Yeah.
So you basically, point being, and I'm not going into too much detail here, it's an identity crisis. And it's an identity crisis when you have the greed from Hollywood and you have a hack like Matt Reeves who doesn't really know what he wants to do. And all the pointers are there. But one thing I will say, just to finish off my intro, is that once you've done all the analysis and all the chips, all the cards fall to the deck, what you will end up happening, I'm saying today, is that this Batman, for all its faults, is going to be the best Batman film we have seen, in my opinion, since Batman Returns. And for those that don't like Tim Burton, just because they don't, and they call him whatever, it's actually going to probably be the best Batman film in history. But for all very unfortunate default proxy reasons.
Well, obviously, I agree with a lot of what you said. It's strange. I mean, just like you said, Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was, what shall we say? There was a taint on it because of the last film that came out. It was so close as far as time, as far as when this new one dropped. But with Batman, it's even that problem is multiplied, let's say 3 times, because we have 3 Batmans that are running concurrently, as you said. Yeah. So it's a weird one. But it's what I find funny, before we actually go into the meat of this thing, I test the temperature with people who they are, what shall we say? We use the analogy in Talkback. We are the freed agents. We are the freed, sort of resistance people. And then you have the agents, and then you have the people who are stuck in the Matrix. I like to test the temperature with the people who are stuck in the Matrix. Okay, I did that with Star Wars, and it's so crazy because some of these people, they've been following Star Wars for 40 years, and it took the rise of Skywalker for them to say, I'm not interested in Star Wars anymore. So it's like my point is, this thing was dropped. A lot of people didn't even know that Pattinson was Batman. It's like and I think that's a very telling sign, because it's all, I think that is a good indicator of how this thing is going to be, received, and how it's going to do once it hits the cinema, because a lot of people still don't know that Pattinson is Batman. So it's one of those things where it's like, I know the conversation came up. I skimmed the talk that the Merc had yesterday. I know the conversation came up about, whether or not this thing is going to do well in the cinemas despite COVID. But even if COVID wasn't around, I think, to your point, POH, is that Batman now there's so much oversaturation with this character. I think even seeing this, people are like, no, like, okay, I'll catch it if I want to. And not just because we have two other Batman. Just look at what else was dropped yesterday in the Batman universe. You had a new video game that came out, right? And you had a new television, or a new animated series. All of these things were released yesterday. So it's like,
Agreed.
it's Batman overkill. So, I don't see it doing well. I don't. It's just one of those things where, you get a feeling in your gut. Long before Batman vs Superman came out, everyone was swearing up and down it's going to make $1 billion. I said, no, I'm not casting that bet.
I think that this will do well.
I agree.
The only problem is that, is it going to be affected by COVID? Are they going to have a vaccine by the time it comes? I mean, those might be stipulating factors.
What is doing well? Let's be specific here. When you say
doing well is for this movie to come out and hit something like 800 million. That's doing well. And I think that this movie is going to do well simply for the reason I told you. See, Batman fans don't realize that they've been getting starved since Batman Returns. They don't even realize it. You see, I'm a guy who, because I love Batman, I can look at this trailer and say that I can see all the faults. They are as plain as day. But there's a certain thing that because it's a bit like J.J. Abrams. If J.J. Abrams made a Batman movie, it would look exactly the same as this. Very similar. And that's because you see, Batman doesn't need to ascend the same height as blockbuster number one, which is Star Wars. Star Wars puts the pop in popcorn. It is the originator. So if J.J. Abrams came out and made a Batman movie, it would be very successful, because we've had a very strange thing where we had this guy, because of intellectual intimidation, the world allowed him to just basically rape Batman for like 7 years, and they awarded him for it. What Matt Reeves has done in this trailer, he's done such simple, basic things that every Batman fan, there's a reason we all like Batman. We may not even understand it. We may not be able to articulate it, but there's a reason people like Batman. If you do these things, as they say in Field of Dreams, the people build it and the people will come. I am going to watch this film. For all the insults I give it, I'm going to watch it. Because at the end of and we are all of us here are going to watch it. That's the point. And at the end of the day, this movie, you're going to come away from this movie feeling more nourished in Batman terms than you felt since Batman Returns.
I agree, and it's one of those things where, to the point of financially, I think it's going to make $800 to $1 billion, and I think it's going to come right under Batman Returns. And you always have to ask a Batman fan which side of the polarity they fall on, because I've noticed people either gravitate towards the fantastical elements or they gravitate towards the realistic, ultra-realistic elements. And which one of the two are you? I'm one of the people that gravitates towards the fantastical elements. So my favorite Batman film is Batman Returns. My favorite Batman is Michael Keaton. Favorite director is Tim Burton when it comes to Batman. And I would push it even further. So I'm completely on the left side of the polarity of fantasy. So when you see this, whether you're someone that goes into the Nolan route and you're the realism route, or you're someone that goes into the Burton route and you're the fantasy route, what Phantom of Hope is, I think, hinting at, and what I think I want to try and phrase the right way, but the words might escape me, is these directors, Reeves, J.J. Abrams, and they both did come up as little kids, friends, practically best friends, editing under Spielberg. So they do come from the same cloth. They're not visionaries, but what they are is, and I'm struggling to find the right word.
You're right. You are
They're
right.
they're like an amoeba. They're assimilating, and
Yes.
they take a little bit from different sources and different things, and they mash it up together. So because of what that entails, because it's not a visionary where you could technically hit or miss,
Yes.
right? Like someone like Snyder can miss easier than someone like Reeves and Abrams. He can miss more because he's trying to be a visionary. So
Yes.
he's gonna fail. And for the old school golden visionaries, they're gonna hit. But if you're what they are, and it's not visionary, they're simulators. What it means is, and I'm going to get into the different pieces and the co-writer, because there is a co-writer to this that's 30 years old, and it's not Matt Reeves, and nobody's talking about this guy, and that's a good and a bad thing, I think, after looking into some of his background. But there is going to be more Batman elements for people that were fans of the Michael Keaton and the Burton Batman films here than anything we've seen since those films, and it's because of the fact that Reeves is an assimilation director, so it's gonna be a little bit animated series, a little bit New 52, a little bit Burton, a little bit Nolan, a little bit of so many different sources. That what Fanthropophobe is saying is right, because he's not a visionary, and because it's drawing from so many sources and combining that pop culture history into a mixture. You'll be able to see what it's doing, and we're going to get into it in detail because I do see what's going on here. But you will have things that you will like because it's an assimilation of different elements of Batman. So it's going to be very hard to critique it as much as you would critique what Nolan or Snyder did, because those were so specific, or people that don't like Burton's films because those were so specific. This is like the opposite strategy, because it's not so specific. And because it's elements of everybody that's come before, it's going to be harder for it to excel. It's going to be harder for you to criticize it. And it's going to do well with more people, if that makes sense. When you come in gray, you're going to do well with more people, I think. And that's why I think it's going to make $800 to $1 billion.
Yeah. And just to add to that, and one I'll make about Force Awakens, that if it was anything but Star Wars, Force Awakens would have been fantastic. It would have been great. It doesn't, because that's what Abrams does. He's an assimilator. So he's going to inadvertently give you a bit of, because that's what he did. He just copied everything. The guy bloody well copied New Hope. And if this just, the reason why Abrams, it's so poetic, the ultimate hack, because of his greed and his ego, he happened to stumble into a flashlight. He stumbled into a goldfish bowl, a magnifying glass, the worst place he ever wanted to go, because he went into the most real franchise in the world. Had he gone into anything else, he could have walked to, like Star Trek, or he could have bumbled his way through. Nobody cared. He went to the place that has the realest fans in the world, because this Star Wars is blockbuster number one. So all your games will become exposed like you're in a fishing bowl, like you're under a magnifying glass. With the Batman, he's gonna just do all these little things. He'll do a bit of grapple hook, a bit of Batmobile, a bit of darkness, a bit of this, a bit of angry, a bit of shouting. Oh, he's really angry. He's so deep. He's so psychological as well. But he'll do everything. So you can't really say, oh, it's bad. But you know damn well this ain't gonna be anything special. So it is completely, totally limited.
I do also want to separate that. So far, we're talking about the director Reeves and the project as a whole, but that doesn't mean that that applies to the actor Pattinson, and they're different components. So you could have what we're talking about, which is the director and the film project itself, from that broader perspective. But I think the actor of Pattinson is a whole different conversation.
Well, you see, BatVal is like, you see, that's what I'm saying. Okay, we've gone over the broad strokes. And maybe, okay, I'm not going to say anything now, but I've got my views on Pattinson and the whole cast. Put it to you that way.
All right. Well, what I will say is this. I mean, I hear everything you guys are saying. You know, it's very well thought out. But I just want it on record so that we can come back to this when the time comes. I don't see this thing make. I'm going to make the same sort of. I have the same stance that I had with BVS. I'm not saying it's going to go the same way, but I do not see it making 800,000. I don't.
Okay.
I think there are quite a few factors. I think COVID is one, but the biggest thing for me is sort of the atmosphere around this. It doesn't scream it doesn't scream like I'm not going to watch this more than once. Same thing with Batman versus Superman.
That's all they need. That's all they need.
I don't know if that's all they need to make 800,000. Okay, because I hope we're at least on the same page as this. You need your Batman versus Superman, Batman vs. Superman needed repeat viewings to go higher than the 600K that it made. Can we agree on that?
Yes, but that was a bad film.
Say again?
That was a bad film. You see,
Chosen.
Listen, it's very important. They only need Chosen. They only need Pete Hemingsley, BatVal, and Chosen to watch it once. But remember, Chosen one, you are a very specific, hardcore guy. And what will make this thing money is the fact that us who sit here and detract from this film are still going to watch it once. But people like me, we're not going to watch Rise of Skywalker once.
Yeah, that's
the whole.
Chosen, don't underestimate too that it'll probably be a good film, but more than that, a lot of girls know who Robert Pattinson is from the Twilight franchise, and how much money did the Twilight franchise make off of that series alone?
Okay.
When you bring in the female viewership just because of Pattinson, it may be something they wouldn't otherwise be interested in, or maybe what they remember from the Dark Knight trilogy, or maybe what they remember from Joker, which made over $1 billion. I think this thing has enough brand and name recognition and actors involved that it's going to bring in those same crowds.
Okay, so I just want this on the record, okay? Just as sure as you two are about this, people.
Okay, so I'll go on record because you said you don't think it's gonna. On my record, as long as a vaccine is out, so COVID is not a consideration, and this thing comes out let's say
yes,
summer next year or towards the end of next year, this thing is going to top 800 million.
Okay, so that I agree with, because it's one of those things where it's like the movie going experience has been suppressed.
Exactly. Yes.
Out and this comes out, then yes, the sky's the limit. It can go to whatever. So then yes, I agree. Let me actually retract my prediction.
In a roundabout way, it would be a similar effect to when Heath Ledger died in The Dark Knight. Kind of had a certain box office boost. That this would be the same situation, but because of COVID. So it would be a similar, in a weird kind of a way. It could be like the perfect storm.
Yes, I agree. Okay, so you guys want to get into the actual trailer now, or what? Where do you guys want to go?
Well, I want to start with the writer. Okay. Because there's a lot of people know Matt Reeves, and they'll talk about him as the director and writing the script. But there's another guy that kind of worked his way into this that I don't think a lot of people know about. I certainly didn't have any idea who he was, and I'm mixed about him because these kind of came out of nowhere. So it's a 30-year-old or 31-year-old writer called Mattson Tomlin, and from what I've heard from certain people, he used to be a fan on fan boards, things like that. He was a writer trying to break in. He was a fan of these types of things, and he writes about 10 scripts a year. He wrote Project Power. For anybody who saw Project Power, that was one of the 10 scripts a year that he wrote and sold recently. And I didn't like Project Power, and I started looking into this guy and, reading some interviews that he's done and trying to get an idea, of him. Because one, he's the same age that I am. So he's a 30-year-old writing a Batman film. I kind of want to know, who is this guy, right? Because if he's 30, 31 years old, chances are he grew up with Batman 89, Returns, and in the animated series, similar to what I did. And if you look at his Twitter page, he posts a lot of animated GIFs of the animated series. There was a certain time where he couldn't say he co-wrote the Batman film, but now he's, able to say that he co-wrote it, and you could look into him. Early in his career, he wrote a short film called Solomon Grundy. Then he wrote a feature film called Solomon Grundy based off the poem, I think, not the comic book character. But he wrote Project Power, and the reason I'm 50-50 on him, and I think he's a huge part of how this Batman film will do, is because one, he's much younger than Reeves, and he's closer in age to us. Two, he just broke into the industry, so you can kind of say he's completely new to the whole thing.
Mhm.
But from what I've seen, I'm 50-50, and this is why. I read an interview about Project Power, and Project Power, for anybody that hasn't seen it, with Jamie Foxx, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and this other actress as well. I don't remember her name, but in the interview, he talks about how when he was writing his 10 scripts a year and trying and struggling to break into the industry, he noticed that there wasn't a lot of black female leads in screenplays. So he wrote Project Power with a black female lead. And he talked about how that kind of gave him like an edge, and it kind of gave him a niche in the market. And because he did end up selling Project Power, and it did end up getting made. But when it was getting made, and they chose the shooting location of New Orleans, he said that he had to change the dialect in the script because he's a white male, 30 years old, and he didn't realize that people didn't talk the way that he had shown them talking in his script till he went to New Orleans, and he realized the dialect and the diction and the verbiage of the way they talk was different. So he edited and took certain things out of the script that might be biased or prejudiced in a way of stereotypical characterizations, right? But when you look at that character, he made her a cliched rapper. And you'll see a similar thing in the Batman script where Gordon ends up being black. And here's the only issue I have. I think the actor they got for Gordon is a great actor, and it's perfect casting. I think I'm going to probably like it more than Gary Oldman, just personally. But I think there's a difference between a writer that's writing from a place of experience, right? When you write a character and a living, breathing person, or there's experience or wealth that's coming from. And when you're writing a certain group of people from a perspective as an outsider, but you're doing it in, how should I phrase it? A stereotypical cliched way that to me comes across as exploitation.
Mhm.
And I think there's a difference, and it's important, of what exploitation is and what writing from a place of authenticity is. I personally, my interpretation of Harvey Dent is a black Harvey Dent, but it comes from a wealth of experience with certain individuals and people that's how I see the character. But when he was interviewed and he said that he made this character a black female lead because there was not a lot of that in the industry. I'm okay with doing that and giving a black female an opportunity to have an acting role when there's so little around. But the fact that he had to change the dialogue because it was cliched, the fact that he made her a stereotypical rapper, those are the things that I see as exploitative and exploitation. And the fact that he's 30 years old, he's not very experienced. So that's a good and bad thing. Why is it a good and bad thing? Because when he's co-writing the Batman, which is the biggest project, and now he broke into the industry, and he hasn't said how that happened yet. He just kind of said there was a chance meeting between him and Matt Reeves, and later on he's going to reveal what actually happened that
Oh
gave
yeah,
him
yeah,
this
yeah,
opportunity.
yeah.
But that's a little bit of a mystery. But what I do know is that he is my age. I do know that if he's my age, for 100% he grew up with the animated series. 100% he grew up watching 89 and Returns. But he is a young writer, and I have seen this with Project Power that I didn't like. It was very weak in terms of a film and a screenplay, and that he wrote 100% on his own. And it was exploitative in the fact of the black female lead. So I have hopes that because there's animated series influence and he's around my age, that there will be elements in this film that we've never seen before that are going to be great and fantastic and a little bit cutting edge in that sense. But I also do think he's inexperienced, and I hope he didn't cast a black Gordon just for the hell of it, and he actually can write a character that is a black James Gordon.
Well, can I just interject once? It's one of those things where it's like, when you're looking at Jeffrey Wright, I'm going to be honest. I don't see a black James Gordon.
Right. You see Gordon because the actor's so great, but he's still going to have to work with what the writer writes.
but do you think that the writing would have been changed in the slightest if there was a white guy in there?
No. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm basing it off of the writing of what he did for the black female lead in Project Power.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying this guy is 30 years old. He's a white male from a certain type of background.
Right.
He's not Frank Darabont. He's not a writer that has a wealth of experience. And he's probably, if he's telling me that when they started shooting the location at New Orleans, which was not originally planned, he had to change the dialogue of his characters because he had written them in a very stilted and stereotypical way that he didn't realize this is not how this group of people actually talks. Right. To me, that comes across as, one, you're not doing your research as a writer, and two, it's a little bit, maybe exploitation is the wrong word, but that's kind of how it comes across to me, is he's out of his element. Maybe that's a better word. He's out of his element.
Right. No, I understand completely what you're saying. In regards to Project Power, then that is a...
And, you know, to your point, Jeffrey Wright is a fantastic actor, so he can bring a whole host of his own perspective to the character that maybe doesn't even matter, but it is still a 30-year-old white male writer that I could only judge from the previous project that he's written, which was Project Power.
I hear what you're saying, and that is, for me, because of the choice in actor to portray the role, that's not a worry for me at all. But
Gotcha.
But it is what you're saying is valid in regards to Project Power, 100%. You know, but it's one of those things where it's like I don't even think that's a factor going into the Batman, given the character he's portraying and the actor that you have portraying him. You
gotcha.
Easily got a white guy in there to do the same thing.
Yeah, and I hope it's not it's not an issue. But I was just trying to color because he's such an unknown writer that I did want to color some little bit of what I've seen so far, digging into his background and kind of what he's worked on so far.
Gotcha. I got you. Sir Pete, anything on that, or did you?
Yeah, no, I do have. I just obviously didn't want to interject to let you guys, land. Yeah, I mean, look, according to this writer, what I would say is that I saw Project Power last night with a nice big Pizza Hut meaty feast pizza. And what I would say is that I had no idea he was white. And now knowing that he was, because I looked at that Project Power, and I said, I'm going to give you guys a bit of leeway because it's a black project, black female lead, black thing. So like, because I actually thought Project Power was quite poor. But I'm like, you know what? I'll still watch it, support it for those reasons. You know, now that I know from BatVal that this man was a 30-year-old white guy, because when I saw that she was a rapper, I was like, the only reason that I'm going to give you any leeway with this rubbish is I'm hoping that, okay, you're a black person that wrote this and you're trying to make some sort of point that why can't she be a rapper, or, you know, some kind of, elemental points of principles or something. But if I now know that it's a white guy that wrote this, I'm like, that is the most idiotic, stereotypical jive I've seen in recent years. That's a joke. So as far as the fact that it's a white guy that wrote this, that is stupid. The guy's an idiot. Now let's go into this whole concept of him being them being in New Orleans. The movie I saw last night, I'm not sure why it had to be in New Orleans. I mean, can someone please explain to me why such a movie could be in New York, Chicago, on the moon, in Tokyo? Who gives a damn what? That movie was so basic and silly. Who cares where it is? Making it in New Orleans and having that guy having to go and change all his dialects is just self-indulgent rubbish. So I'll be honest with you, that movie was very, very poor. It's like I give that like 6 out of 10. Like it was silly. It was silly. And I just gave it a bit of leeway because of the whole, black thing, and it's a different thing. The only thing about it was the gimmick. And I'm loath to call it a gimmick, but it's I don't want to go too deep into Chris Nolan and his whole J.D. Washington and that whole thing he's doing with Inception, and when he puts a new type of protagonist in his teaser trailer and all that rubbish. There's a lot of exploitation of Black Lives Matter / Black Panther success that's been going on in the last 3-4 years that I don't really want to get into, but it's disgusting. And one of the king proprietors of that is yours truly, Chris Nolan. So now that I'm getting all this extra knowledge about, that you can actually go onto Netflix now and there's a hashtag Black Lives Matter collection. And certain movies have that as a tag as, ooh, this is part of the Black Lives Matter collection. You go onto Spotify and there's a Black Lives Matter playlist. I mean, come on, mate. So anyway, so all this rubbish, and this now links into Jeffrey Wright, because that punk, Matt Reeves, said he wanted Gordon to be black. Do you know how sick you have to be in your? But then again, it's the same thing. It's the same thing as J.J. Abrams. You know that J.J. Abrams has donated like 10 million from his Bad Robots company to Black Lives Matter causes. The same man who, with his friend Lawrence Kasdan, who has his own history with Han Solo, delivered Finn to us. I will never forget and I will never forgive. And that man, him and Lawrence Kasdan are going to answer for Finn. If not today, if not tomorrow, one day they will. And Lawrence Kasdan is going to answer for what he's been doing to Han Solo since Empire Strikes Back. I'm not forgetting that ever. So these guys coming out and saying that, oh, Jeffrey Wright is going to be Gordon because he has to be black. Basically, Jeffrey Wright's Gordon is going to be amazing because it's Jeffrey Wright. Yeah. And the only reason that Jeffrey Wright's Gordon is going to work is because, and this might be a bit controversial, but Jeffrey Wright has adopted a certain style in his career that is basically like the Colin Powell of black actors, if you get what I'm trying to say. So that is why.
Can you describe that a little bit more? So I'm trying to see the connection.
Describe what? The Colin Powell of black actors?
Yes.
Basically, he is a more dynamic and complex and more nourished Morgan Freeman. He's basically like Colin Powell is
if I may, he is the black person that, let's just say, whites who do not have a lot of experience with black people feel most comfortable around. That's
and even a bit more complex. It's like Chris Nolan. He's the kind of black person that people like Chris Nolan wished all black people could be like.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not just about this. It's almost like they know this is the word black, but wouldn't life be so much easier if they could all be like Colin Powell? So that is what Jeffrey Wright has. That is the streamline he's gone, and I don't think he's done it by mistake, but he's gone into that place and he does it very, very well. Because obviously when you watch Shaft, you know this guy can do all kinds of stuff. He does it very well. So it's almost like you're having, and Matt Reeves aims, because go watch Apes. Matt Reeves is a very racist director. Go watch Planet of the Apes, that second movie. It's all about white xenophobia. He is doing this because he knows he can get it for free. How can I get hashtag Black Lives Matter free of charge? Ooh, we got Jeffrey Wright. And he's going to deliver in droves. He'll deliver in droves. But the truth is, you ain't really made Gordon black, because that ain't a black Gordon. So point being, and listen, do all what you want to do, Matt Reeves, but there's some guys like Phantom of Hope, aka Sir Pete Hemingsley, that you just don't, you ain't putting the wool over my eyes, baby. It ain't gonna happen. So go on. So scuttle along and do what you need to do. So that's how that's gonna be. So in terms of, but coming back to the points you made about the writer, the truth is that what Matt Reeves, see, I go by this saying that it ain't necessarily about the steak, it's how you cook it. It's like that same script for Force Awakens, give that movie to Spielberg to make. That same script for Dark Knight Rises, give that same script for Dark Knight Rises to David Fincher to direct. You see, it's like, yes, sometimes you can have bad writing. You can have a bad script. But at the end of the day, if you have a skilled enough movie maker, you can polish a lot of rubbish. Now, with Matt Reeves, the guy's a cowboy. So what he's doing now is that, as BatVal said, you're assimilating a lot of different things. If you assimilate well enough, you see, you're coming off Dark Knight Rises. People don't, and because it's Nolan, nobody wants to just come out and say, this guy made a bloody howling pile of crap. Nobody wants to say it. Even till today. No, Marion Cotillard, she came out and apologized for how bad her scene was when she died. She apologized because she was actually getting mocked in France, and she apologized. Christian Bale has come out and said he blew it as Batman in that whole series. The Batman himself has said he blew it, but people still just cannot, because of intellectual intimidation. Can it be possible that weirdo with his funny hair called Tim Burton could have made better films than this sweetly spoken, purple prose prince, Chris Nolan, with his waistcoat and his sweet English accent and blonde hair? Can that be possible? Oh, no.
It's exactly what you say about intellectual intimidation. It's pseudo-intellectual. It's a pseudo-intellectual engaging in intellectual intimidation.
Of course. And the end of the day, that's why till today, nobody can say that Rises was rubbish, because their brains just can't get there. Even though we all know it, we all feel it, we all know it. You just can't get there. Mm-hmm. So with this movie coming out with Matt Reeves, it's very simple. Once he does all these basic things, he's going to now affect Batman fans on a subconscious level. And because Matt Reeves is a better assimilator, he's a better fraud than Abrams, he's going to do it well. And you can see that from the trailer. I mean, look, this guy is, look, I mean, listen, I don't go into too many details. Okay, I'll just keep it simple. Point being that he's good at his assimilation. He's a better director. He's a better writer than J.J. Abrams. So the guy is going to do the business. Now, this writer, this 30-year-old punk, might come in and make some silly decisions, but it's not really going, because what we can now see, Chosen and Batman, is that we now live in a world where fans have been so dumbed down, they don't really hold art to a very high standard. It's guys like us who are on our little, web docs and out there talking and screaming. No, we are the ones who they laugh at and call us like man babies. Oh, well, what's the big deal? You're always moaning. They all insult us. So the sad thing is that Matt Reeves doesn't have to be that. Sorry, the writer doesn't have to be that good. The onus is on Matt Reeves.
Is there upside to the writer being 30 years old and that he might put things in there that maybe fans might be more pulled towards? More influences from things 30-year-old fans might recognize just by the fact of his age alone, let alone maybe that he was a fan of these things growing up.
That's my point, is that it can only be a bonus, because nobody cares how bad he is, because fans are so stupid. It's like, how can, and also to BatVal and Chosen, how can any Batman fan look at that suit and accept it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those.
I like the suit. I mean, judging from what I could tell so far.
BatVal, things that, see, I enjoy debates and dialogue, and I'll tell you now that I can sit down with you now, and I can tell you, and I can argue with you conclusively why that suit is rubbish. Now, you can start from the position you are now that, yeah, I quite like it, but I can literally tell you, sit down with you now, and we can spend the next 5 to 10 minutes, and I can tell you exactly why that suit is crap.
Well, I would be interested, just because, like I said, my aesthetic is the extreme fantasy. So I don't like the realism environment to begin with. Like, I'm a proponent of a Bane 20 times the size of a Batman. I'm a proponent of a Batman that's, an alpha male billionaire tycoon with probably muscular prosthetics to make him look even bigger. So I'm an extremist to the point where I would probably make Batman a monstrosity. Just because there's heroicism in monstrosities. There's no heroicism in an ideal within the system, goody two shoes, idealistic type of appeal. But it goes back to Frankenstein, and it goes back to the Hunchback of Notre Dame and all these types of things.
Yeah.
But I'm almost playing devil's advocate in saying that I don't really see the suit as a bad thing. I could see the negatives. They got rid of the one piece between the cowl and the cape. They made some adjustments like that. That type of thing.
BatVal.
I'm just interested to see the point.
No. See, because obviously, look, have hope knows this, and a lot of people know this. And listen, what BatVal needs to do, because yes, we like fantasy. Of course, we love fantasy. I love it more than anyone else. But my point is that if you're going to make a beast, make a beast. If you're going to make Frankenstein, make Frankenstein. If you're going to make an abomination, make it an abomination. What I'm looking at with Matt Reeves' suit is a man that doesn't know what he's trying to do. And a clue.
So you're saying it's a mix of too many elements.
It's a mix that it doesn't just know what it's doing. That's what's like. And the key to this is go and look at, and this is why I'm trying to mention that. Because look, I don't want to go into too many details, but this should be very basic understanding, okay? You need to go and look at the image that Matt Reeves, this is just to show you how daft and stupid Matt Reeves is in relation to J.J. Abrams. Matt Reeves himself posted an image that Jim Lee drew of his own costume. What Matt Reeves doesn't understand is the picture that Jim Lee drew, because Batman is in Jim Lee's DNA, the image that Jim Lee drew ain't the costume he made.
Jim Lee added the critical adjustments.
So that's my point. It's like there are very basic dimensions and proportions and tailoring you need to do. And the more complex you get, the more crucial it is. So because you've gone so weird with collars and bits of arrows on his arm and all this, you better make sure you get those details right. Now, when you go and look at Jim Lee's drawing, had you brought out the bat suit and it looked like that, I would say, you know what, this is too much, but hey, you've fallen on your sword. You're like, man, I'm going for that, and I bloody well brought it. Jim Lee's version of his suit is the Matt Reeves suit if Matt Reeves was Tim Burton. If Matt Reeves was Tim Burton, that's how he'd make his own design look. Because Matt Reeves is such an idiot, you've done a design and you haven't sold the design. And it just ain't, same as the very same thing as Chris Nolan's Dark Knight suit, which he then used again in Rises. Mate, you can't bring Batman out like this. You can't do this, man. You can't. It's wrong. And there's nothing.
But what is it? Is it specifically the suit? Is it the gauntlets or the cape and cowl separation?
Can I just say, for me,
it's everything. Sorry,
well,
go.
See, that's where I disagree. I don't think it's everything, but I do think there's a moment, 45-second mark in the trailer, 42-second mark, excuse me, where he's walking up and the camera's on the floor, and you see his boots sort of just stop because Batman has entered the room. And the way that the cape looks, the way it's dangling behind him, see, and BatVal, we've had this conversation before. There's going to be some post effect trickeration to make that suit look better than what it is. But I do see, like, the boots, they don't work. The cape looks a bit like
Chosen. I said everything.
Well, that's
but I want to question, because I know Fan of Hope mentioned the subconscious, right? And maybe I'm someone that's very in tune with their imagination, and I want to ask this question. That scene you're referring to, where it starts with the sequence of the boots, he walks into the room surrounded by the cops and Gordon, and then it shows Gordon turn the letter to him and, to the Batman, do you know anything about this? And then it shows the first shot that we see of Pattinson in the suit, and he approaches Gordon, right? Yep. And he's not saying anything, but he approaches.
Yep.
When I see that sequence, the first thing that comes into my mind, and maybe it's my subconscious, but the first thing that comes into my mind is Batman the Animated Series. And maybe it's not necessarily the suit that's doing that to me. Maybe it's the events of Gordon turning a letter and addressing Batman in the midst of cops. Maybe it's that type of thing. Maybe it's touching into my subconscious, but something about it resonates with me. It might not be the suit, but there is something there. Is it the suit or is it the sequence?
Well, I don't know, but let me tell you what I felt when I watched that, because it's one of those things where, you know, I want you, when this is done, BatVal, I want you to go back and watch that scene again and see if this is a possibility. Because when he opens the letter and he says, he addresses, he looks up and he brings the green card up. I actually don't think he's talking to Batman in that scene. I think that was specifically cut just for the trailer. In the same way that The Force Awakens, you know, we had a shot of, you know, the robotic hand touching R2D2, but that was nowhere in the film. You see what I mean?
So you're saying it's my imagination filling in the blanks? Maybe a bit of trickery there.
I believe so. Of course, I can't be sure, but just go back and look at the way that it's cut and the way that he looks up. And I have a feeling that he's talking to someone else, and Batman approaches them at a different point in the conversation. So that third person who may be off screen in that exchange may already be there, and Batman is walking up to join to listen to what they're saying.
But does it matter?
It doesn't matter. But no. I know. Again, I was just about to say that. It has nothing to do. I'm just talking about
so then I guess my question is that resonance. How come when I see the suit, I see Batman the Animated Series? Is it because he's thin?
But
is it like the stature of the guy, maybe?
When you say that image, are you talking about from the floor?
Essentially, all the shots of Pattinson in this as Batman remind me of the animated series, and I don't know if it's his posture that he's a thinner Batman, and maybe that's why, or if it's the cowl or the lighting or what.
Towards BatVal, listen, it could be the whole, as you said, it could be the multiplicity of the holistic package of the whole thing. You know, it could be, you know, it could be just. It could be all those things that, you know, just have hit that thing. And maybe that could be coming from, as you said, the writer who put that scene in there. Now, for me, as I said, obviously, going back to the whole costume and the whole suit, for me, the key about the suit is you look at that Jim Lee drawing. You've got to look at the Jim Lee drawing, and you've got to compare the Jim Lee drawing to what you've seen. So when I'm saying that suit, and I'm going to BatVal, when I'm saying that suit is rubbish, I'm like, BatVal, you need to look at Jim Lee's drawing. And you need to now ask yourself, is that what I'm looking at in that trailer? And then you've got to say, which one looks better? And then you might ask, why does it look better?
Of course it's the Jim, because I draw and I change comic book heroes' costumes all the time. But when I do that, there's elements like to a Cyclops or to a Batman outfit or to whoever it is. There's certain things I instinctively know I can touch and change, and there's certain things that I know I can't go anywhere near, and they have to be in the design. So when you design a suit yourself or you illustrate a comic book, or Tim Burton, he was an animation illustrator, so you know there's elements like, you know, Tim Burton's cowl, right? He comes from animation. So an animator will know there's things that I can change here between one design to the next, but there's things that have to be there, especially iconic designs that everybody knows, Mickey Mouse, whoever it is, you know, things like that.
Yeah, but this is about a visionary, okay? So let's talk about what Chosen One tapped into and what you talked about, like you touched on. Look at Zack Snyder's Batman costume. Look at Zack Snyder's Superman costume, and then you look at what Brandon Routh did with Superman. You look at what Chris Nolan did with Batman, and what Matt Reeves has done. Zack Snyder's Batman costume is basically perfect. Then you look at Zack Snyder's Superman costume is basically perfect. So it's like, and here's another thing: go and get Spielberg and ask him to give you Batman, and see what he does with the costume. You see, for me, what I'm saying is that there are certain people that they have talents and people don't have talents, but there's certain things that you should not be allowed to touch certain projects if you don't know certain basic things. I cannot understand how anybody gave Matt Reeves Batman to do, but they've done it, and this is the best you're going to get, and you're going to get something that might be okay by default. But obviously, we haven't really sort of touched with, so kind of looking at the whole costume. My point is that one of his excuses was that he's in year 2. so therefore his suit isn't. I'm like, listen, man. Okay, so shall we say that? Okay, the movie it's a bad film because it's in year 2, so the movies will get better in year 3. Like, well, what kind of rubbish are you talking about? You're making a bloody film. You're gonna tell me that? Oh, the reason why the acting is bad is because it's in year 2. Oh, the reason that the car is rubbish is because it's in year 2. What are you talking about? You've made a rubbish suit, and now you're stuck with this suit for a whole. I mean, look, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's bad, but ultimately you're in a situation that you can't change it now. And the key to me, the key is that the fans accept this stuff. See, that's why the reason the reason why you don't hear from me in public life, I don't do all this talking, because I've given up. I cannot interact with people, fans, or people who, the rubbish you see. I've been saying this since Batman Begins. After Batman Begins came, and I said that this guy blew it from, this is not the same guy I saw in Equilibrium or American Psycho. This man has gone in. This man cannot film fighting. I said that after Begins in 2000, whenever. When fans see this rubbish and they accept it, what can I do? What you're looking, how can any fan look at that costume I saw in that thing yesterday and accept it?
It's probably because it's leaps and bounds better than the Catwoman costume, which is worse compared to Michelle Pfeiffer's. And then, you know, we could even go into what they're doing with the Riddler's outfit.
Yeah, but she's not
comparison,
Catwoman yet. Yeah, but she's in Catwoman yet.
I was about to say, it's year 2.
Exactly.
It's I get it, but you know, that's when you look at Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman costume, and it was a miracle.
But that's a classic. Yeah, but that's a classic.
It's classic. So,
but she made that in one sitting.
True. True.
Stitched it together. Yeah.
I mean, look, it's one of those things that, I mean, look, fine. You know, for me, I'm just like, all the point I made at the top of this is that these are all issues that I've been saying it from day one. But it's one of those things where it's like, once you've got, you're stuck with it. And at the end of the day, the question maybe we're going to move on to the actual actors now. But for me, when I look at that costume and that suit, I look at a man who's like Matt Reeves. Yet again, here we are, and without wanting to be too controversial, I mean, this is what white privilege is. Like J.J. Abrams being begged to do Star Wars, and then brought back to, and Rian Johnson being allowed to come in and just do whatever that is what white privilege is. It's like, at the end of the day, you're looking at stuff where it's like, what is this rubbish? Like, how does anybody look at a man says, I'm making a Batman film, and he delivers to you a Batmobile that looks like something you pulled out of your ass? Like, what is that?
Does the Batmobile kind of look like the animated series, though? Not as long on the front, but the wings on the back and the fire propulsion and that kind of thing. And then to your point, you did say because of assimilation, there will be things in here that are, in a sort of say, attractive, even though the film will most likely just be good. What are the things you did like from it? And then Chosen, to get back to your point, the same question for you as well, and also maybe the point you were trying to make when Batman enters that scene in terms of his boots and the cape.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, well, if we can just take this one. So, when we're talking about the Batmobile, I mean, I don't see the Batmobile in this. I see the Interceptor. That's what I see.
Yes.
When we're talking about the flame booster in the back, literally every Batman had that. So it's one of those things where you can pull out some, like Burton's Batman had that elongation of the.
Yeah, you're right. It did.
Yeah. You can pick out pretty much everything except for the tumbler. It's just so you don't get really that many points with me for that. Now with the scene where Batman walks onto this, in the way that look, BatVal, you are about imagery. You and I have had conversations about this, about how you like to see Batman's sort of cape, sort of cloak over him. And I already know what the response to this statement is going to be. For me, the cape looks it looks like something I could have put together, and let's just say if we had no other cape, like something like it looks like a blanket, to be honest. And it's one of those things where it's like, the excuse that this is Batman year 2, I'm with POH.
Nah.
It's not an excuse, you know.
Well, let's put up a polarized image, because you talk about imagery. Let's put a polarized image to show how it could be done another way, right? What if Batman's suit, when you saw it, maybe because it was creepily elongated or whatever the material or whatever it was, what if whoever looked at the suit and it's cloaked over his body, maybe, you know, spread across the floor in different ways, right? What if the first thought, or as a director, you wanted to imprint this thought in the audience, right? What if the first thought was, my God, I don't want to touch that suit because it looks, I don't know what it's made of. I don't know if it's alive or not alive. I don't know if it's dead. I don't know what that is. But what if that was the approach? That's showing how you could do it a different way, where there's some more imagery, sort of, say, in the design of the thing.
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that one more. You're
like if your approach was, I'm designing Batman's cowl and cape and suit, right? And your goal or your mission was, how do I design this in such a way that anybody that sees this cape cloaked over the suit and this guy standing in the middle of the room is thinking to themselves, I don't want to get near this guy because I can't tell if that suit, if I can't tell if that cape is alive or dead or what the material is, or in a sense of you can't identify what it is. It's an unknown to you. So would that be a stronger design choice than what they've done with like a short cape or something that you know what it's made of? You can identify it in the store. You know where it comes from. You're familiar with it. It doesn't seem out of the ordinary. To a degree, Keaton seemed out of the ordinary.
I hear what you're saying, because if I'm a cop in that room, I would like to think in a real.
You don't want to go near him.
You don't want to go near him because you don't know if that is fabric or if this guy actually has wings. I get what
exactly. That's the approach, right?
I get what you're saying, but if you really look at that shot and the way that it just dangles, it's not right. And even from the boots, from it's like. The posture that he has there when he stops walking, and I'm not kidding you, BatVal, it doesn't look like someone who has studied martial arts. Sorry, I have studied martial arts. Okay, you don't stand like that.
Chosen. Listen, look, Chosen. All I'll say, Chosen, listen, look. You know, from everything you've just said now, is obviously why your name is Chosen One. And the truth is that you know and I know that it was all wrong. It was all wrong. It was all everything you've just said now, it's 1,000% right, because we both know it was all wrong. So at the end of the day, what can you do? You can't change it now. It is what it is. But it's it's one of those things where it's like, what you're seeing is a man, Matt Reeves out. Matt Reeves doesn't see, this is why I keep going back to Burton. Everyone said, oh, Burton. People don't understand what Tim Burton was. They don't. Yeah. And if they don't, they never will. Because people cannot get into their brains that when you're dealing with Batman isn't you don't just make a bloody Batman film. You don't just make it. There are so many things you have to do. And the truth is, here's the truth. No normal man can do it. You almost have to be a cheat. And the reason why Tim Burton was a cheat is because Tim Burton is basically Batman. And Tim Burton himself said this himself, that doing Batman wasn't that big a deal for him because he identifies with it.
Yep.
When a director opens his own bloody mouth and says that, don't you understand that it's game, set, and match? So that's why when people insult Burton, I just giggle. I just giggle because
I know what you're saying, because it's sort of a similar vein for me. It's like it's the clean cut, being able to, it's there's certain individuals in this world who cannot turn the nerd button off. Okay, you can't. And those are the kinds of people, to your point, that I think Tim Burton is, which is why I think it ended up so well. These guys, Abrams, I don't know about this new guy, but Matt Reeves, they seem like the standard, clean cut, suit wearing, business,
That is who they are. That is exactly who they are.
And I think that's reflected in your work to some degree. So, or to a large degree. So it's look, I agree with you 100% there, but I just had to chime in and
No. It's one of those things that's like, what do you think is going to happen? And Chelsea, I've been saying this for years, that and that's part of my intellectual intimidation thing. Mm-hmm. That, as I keep saying all the time, that I squared posit intellectual intimidation is that Chris Nolan is a talented but frigid director who is allowed to get away with murder while directing movies in genres in which he is naturally incompatible. The simple thing is that because of intellectual intimidation, you have been allowed to get away with murder directing Batman films where your nature, your natural physiology, that is why for 3 films, you're basically fighting your own protagonist. Chris Nolan was actually in constant conflict with Batman. So he's hardly Batman. From the moment he becomes Batman, he doesn't want to be Batman. He's always in the daylight. He's wearing suits. He's making speech. Like, mate, maybe you'd really like him to be a politician in the Senate, but mate, this is Batman. Whether you like it or not, you can't force the issue. You can't force him to be what makes you more comfortable, because that's what you identify with. Look at Nolan, for God's sake. Look at his suits. Look at his speeches. You think that guy for a second in his life has ever understood what it means to be dark, to be the underdog, to be on the other side of the tracks?
Or to pick up a comic book and be transported to another world?
Of course not. Of course, you think that guy
especially out of necessity. So someone like Burton, who might have been an outcast as a kid or might have been weird, when you pick up that comic book to be transported to another world out of necessity, and you're exercising your imagination's muscle, that's the perfect person you want.
BatVal, BatVal, you're only saying that because these are all the basics. See, what you're saying is all the basics. What Chosen One just said about Batman walking into the room and the way, those are all the basics. But you cannot know this if you're not from that world. And look at that DC convention where you had Zack Snyder revealing the black costume of Christopher Reeve. Chosen One, can you explain to me why it was 3 girls and Zack Snyder? Could anybody explain to me why a DC convention has 3 girls there talking to Zack Snyder, who is now revealing the black costume? Now, let me be controversial and be a terrible chauvinistic idiot.
Careful, my lord.
Now, do you think any of those 3 girls has a blimmin' clue the actual significance of Superman's black costume?
Nope.
Do you really think they have a clue? They'll sit there and go, like one of them was like, oh, you're going to break the internet now. No, he's not going to break the internet because a lot of people in the world don't really care. So if you knew anything about what Superman and fandom is, you know that he's not going to break the internet because nobody cares. The only guys that care are guys like the 3 of us on this bloody forum. But you don't know that because you're industry. Those 3 girls are industry. You've come in, you're riding the wave, it's all cool, it's $1 billion industry, so now everybody's happy. And all the nerds who only ever wanted to get a bit of la-la with the girls accept you with open arms because they're losers. That's how it works. That's why they're all over Comic-Con now doing their cosplay in their Chun-Li outfits and Evelyn outfits. That's what it's all about. And it's sad because the geeks and the nerds welcome them with open arms. And that is what Ray is. That's what it's all about. Then we come to we swing it back to Robert Pattinson and Twilight. You see, I ain't got anything against Robert Pattinson. Absolutely. Listen, man, we've all got to start somewhere. And he's a decent actor. But the problem we have is that Matt Reeves with his little, you've seen images of Matt Reeves with the little bow tie and his little shirt and everything. He looks exactly the same as Chris Nolan. So
do you think this is the first Batman film that we're going to get that in the worst case scenario will be pretentious, artsy, in a misfire type of way?
Absolutely. But it's not going to matter because it's still going to be the best we've got since. See, that's what I said at the top of this. Everything you said, we know is going to happen. It's going to be pretentious. It's going to be contrived. It's going to be fake. It's going to be influenced by the Joker. It's going to be, all these elements are going to creep in. And it's going to be a weird Frankenstein. But because Batman has been done such an egregious disservice for 20 years, it's still gonna default as the best Batman movie for a lot of people, and for me, the best since Returns. It's a very weird, unhappy, and sick, inadvertent achievement. But that's just where things land. You know, it's where things land. And at the end of the day, so basically, with all these things, nothing is ever gonna happen until basically, this is really left field. Mel Gibson is making Passion of the Christ 2. That's the next step. Everything we're doing now, this is all just dialogue, and we'll see what Dune does. But we're all just talking left, right. See, because it's about because I think was it Jim Caviezel was talking about all these superhero movies. I think this was last year. He said, we've got a script for Passion of the Christ 2, blah blah, and it goes like, superhero movies are all this and blah. And I've always said I want Mel Gibson to do a Superman movie. We've said that for years with Jim Caviezel. But the weird thing is that Jim Caviezel made the point that this is like the ultimate superhero movie. And what made it weird, what he said was that it kind of clicked in my brain because Passion of the Christ was like a biblical thing about, some say historic documented events. Passion of the Christ 2, it's some weird, I don't know whether you guys know what this synopsis is. It's some weird left field psychological, metaphysical thing of the years or the time, the 3 days unaccounted for that are spent in hell. Where they talk about Jesus ripping away the gates of hell and descending to hell and causing chaos. So
that could be interesting.
So he was saying that, and he was saying that, okay, he's seen Mel Gibson's ideas and he's going full out. It's going to be left field. That he said he's going to bring in elements of original sin and go back in time to the original, Milton's Paradise Lost. So the point being is that, you see, I'm tired of all this superhero rubbish. There's all this Matt Reeves and all this crap. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it. So point being is that Mel Gibson now may have actually leapfrogged over maybe Superman and actually just gone to the jugular. Because he's now going to be he's going to be connecting superhero to religion, to morality, to reality.
And to literary works.
To literary works. So you're going to have a superhero movie that actually has real manifestation and grounding in the material religious world, the church, the Pope. It's a superhero movie that the Pope wants to watch. That's the simple way of putting it. So that's the next step. So when I see all this stuff with these idiots, I'm dealing with Abrams and all these clowns. I've got Spielberg doing West, whatever rubbish he's doing because you don't want to do Star Wars. Fine. Because this, to be honest, somebody has got to step up. Somebody, because it's a joke. We're talking about a movie now where it's like, hey man, it's the best we got. That's what we're talking about. We're not sitting here saying, oh, we're excited. Oh my God, did you see that scene? Oh, I can't wait till it. No, we're going, hey man, it's pretty good.
That's something also that I wanted to bring up. I want to see if you guys agree with that. It's like, I think it was you, POH, who made the point that being a Star Wars fan for over 30 years and bringing it now into this new, they missed an opportunity because the fans are like crack addicts, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, for me, it's like, where's the good dope? I know this is a terrible analogy, but it's like the last thing that I was genuinely excited for was in 2008, pre-Dark Knight. That's the
and that was my argument I made, years ago with the arguments of addiction, basically, and giving the good quality dope, basically, yes, and then the good quality meth. It's like Star Wars now. It's got to a point where the meth addicts, the drug addicts, they've gotten clean. So you've taken such a long time.
But they would relapse in a second if something good came out.
I felt like Joker was some kind of a hit. And then at least the punching sequence in this was a little bit of a hit, but maybe I'm diluting myself.
I think so. You chose one. You're right. See, you're right in terms of fandom. Listen, I'm always ready. Just give me what I want. I'm always ready. But in terms of Star Wars, you have to resurrect Luke Skywalker. There's nothing else will do.
Mm.
It doesn't matter what you do. Star Wars, it's one of those that it's such a simple thing. And you have to resurrect Mark Hamill, not some guy who acts at, you have to resurrect him and undo what you did.
I don't know how could they do that.
There are theories about what Jon Favreau is trying to do. Alternate timelines and all that kind of stuff. Here's the point, Chosen, was that Mark Hamill is getting old.
Yes.
We ain't got forever.
Yes.
The Lord above gave an idiot called J.J. Abrams, Harrison Ford fit, Carrie Fisher fit, John Williams fit, Mark Hamill fit, Billy D. Williams fit. He gave you everybody fit and ready. And the best you could do was that trash we saw with Force Awakens. That is on you, J.J. Abrams, and it's going to be on you for the rest of your life. Now, the point we have now is that he's getting old. Time's up. It's done. Now, coming back to actually Batman and stuff and what BatVal said, and you said, yes, if Fincher came out tomorrow and made Batman correctly, I guess I'm back. Yeah. This is one of the things that Batman is in Star Wars. Star Wars is and I've said this to you before on many occasions. Star Wars is the jewel in the crown. Star Wars is blockbuster number one. Star Wars is spiritual.
Its origin point is a film, unlike Batman.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's not something that it can just be, it's like a conceptual, whatever you call it. Star Wars is very specific. It's very, very specific. And
Oh, go ahead.
No. And it's very specific. And if you can't live up to it, step aside. And the key, I tell everybody all the time, the key to Star Wars is George Lucas's very simple words when somebody asked him if Steven Spielberg would direct it. That's the key. And that's what people don't understand. Star Wars is not a mistake. And the man that made it is not an idiot. He knows what he's made. You've sold it for $4 billion. Why do you care who directs it now? Why?
Because then you'd be convicted.
No, because what? Who cares who that? So why should you put out a thinly veiled threat against your supposed best friend to make sure he doesn't go anywhere near it? Why? Because you know exactly what Star Wars is, and you know that for your whole life you've actually come up short. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
It's not very simple.
Phantom of Hope, you said that this Batman film is going to be closest to Batman Returns. How close do you think it's going to be?
It's going to be very, very far because nothing is anything like Batman. Basically, Batman Returns and Batman 89. For me, the bar is... See, it's not about the bar.
So essentially, how do you see this film playing out? What do we see in this film?
In this film, you're going to see Pattinson acting his socks off, being very disturbed, very crazy, very deep, very dynamic, very tortured in a contrived and synthetic way, because that is all Matt Reeves can deliver to you. Not any fault of Pattinson, that is all Matt Reeves can give you. So
do you think Pattinson will equal Keaton in a variation, but in a worse film? Or do you think he might be more interesting?
Let me have a minute to find a way to respond. You see, I'll have to, because I can't call. I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm still gonna try to go out on a limb. I'll say that there's a difference between like Star Wars. There's the original, and there's the assimilation. Robert Pattinson has a wealth of source material from actors, comics, history to pull from to try to do something. Michael Keaton had to reach into his own elements to deliver something that nobody till today really fully appreciates. Nobody, people don't really get what that guy was doing. Now, Pattinson is going to try very hard to do things, but Pattinson isn't the thing. You see, Michael Keaton is what he is. You see, Christian Bale came out and said he blew it because
so you're saying in essence Keaton went into his guts and all these other actors are going into sources.
Yes.
So his was a primal portrayal as an actor.
Yeah. Keaton sat down and thought, I'm a man that wears a bat costume. What does that mean? Simple as that. Very, very, very simple. And that is the in the ignition, and then we take it where we need to take it. Pattinson doesn't really see. I've listened to a lot of stuff he said in interviews, the way he's talked about, oh, it's so exciting going into the thing. He said a lot of different things. And I think that because of what he said, Pattinson is going to probably give you the best we've seen since Keaton. He'll give you the best, you know. But for me, it's like the difference between an A and an A star. You know, it's like.
Will it be the difference between Jack Nicholson's initial Joker and Heath Ledger's Joker in a similar vein? Because I would still argue Jack Nicholson is the better Joker, but is that Nicholson to Heath Ledger, is that the same as Keaton to Pattinson?
No, because what I've seen from Pattinson in that trailer is not good enough. You see, Jack Nicholson zeroed in on Psycho Guy. Heath Ledger zeroed in on Sociopath. You know, Joaquin Phoenix zeroed in on here's what this guy might be like if he lived in the real world. You know, then you see Pattinson. What I can see.
Can I just really quickly?
Go ahead.
What I see from Pattinson is the damaged sort of male aura that the Machine Gun Kelly fans gravitate towards.
Yes.
It's that.
I mean,
dark. Describe that a little bit.
It kind of goes to what POH talk about as like the climate. It's
like punk rock angst or that type of thing.
Say again.
Is it like a punk rock angst, like rock metal bands and that kind of appeal?
Yes, but then it's also a sympathetic sort of approach where it's like you get on his side almost. It's like
the wounded animal.
Yes, like he's a victim, and that's one thing I don't associate with.
Yeah. I mean, look, but just like
just really quick, it just seems to me like that kind of person, right, has sort of emerged in the last 20 years, right? The only reason it's like, if we were back in the day where there were rules, I mean, Machine Gun Kelly, not to pick on the guy, but the Machine Gun Kelly, he wouldn't have lasted after the Kill Shot album, okay? He'd be just as dead as Ja Rule and the rest of these guys. But because now society, we're looking for that kind of male.
Yeah. I mean, it's like with what I see, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you see, the way thing about Pattinson is that this guy, he's going to try so hard. And he's going to make such a valiant effort. But the problem I'm saying is that he lacks and I don't mean to be mean, but he lacks the resources, the intellectual resources to be able to actually flourish. So, and I'm making this based on the interviews he's done and the trailer I saw yesterday. Now, listen, I could change my mind if I see a full trailer. So let me leave that bit of opportunity for me to change my mind.
And combined with where you're going, what do you think of his Batman voice when he delivered the line with the vengeance and all that? Just to add it into where you're headed.
That is part of what gives me the conclusion I'm coming to. But the way he said the line, how he delivered it, the whole thing. And I combine that with his interviews. This is a guy who he's a Brit. He's going to do his homework and he's going to do a lot of hard work. I'm going to give him that much. But ultimately, the difference, what splits the difference with these kind of things is there's a part of you as a human being that has to be able to rise to this occasion, which is why Christian Bale failed. Because Christian Bale, as in terms of a CV, there is no. I've said it before, and I've said it to say it till the cows come home. Batman is Christian Bale.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter who today, even beyond Keaton, anybody. Batman is Christian Bale. But Christian Bale, the human being, could not rise to the occasion.
But
the guy
for that. There were reasons for that. I hope you would agree.
No, the reason is his personality, and that's why he's come out and he's apologized.
But what about the person who was helming the whole project?
No. Because then we look at Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger just did his own thing. Because the actual character of Joker makes no sense.
Christian Bale should have come in just like Heath Ledger did.
Exactly.
Because after, Christian Bale just did Ford v Ferrari, and he was incredible in that.
Well,
not incredible, but it was better than his Batman.
Yeah. So it's like Heath Ledger's Joker. When you watch The Dark Knight, Heath Ledger's Joker makes no sense for one simple reason. Chris Nolan is at odds with himself. He's at odds with Batman. He's trying to be a Cameron. He's never going to be a James Cameron. And he's going to finally shut up in Tenet. What he's done is that you should have done Riddler, but because you know that, they think I'm boring, they think I'm going to do Riddler, you go and try to do Joker. What do? You try to shoehorn the Riddler's personality into Joker. Then you wind up with a Joker that is too intelligent and talks too much. Why are you this clever? You're like a scholar. Why are you a clown? It makes no sense. But the fact is that Heath Ledger did such a good job as portraying it and talking all this rubbish that it didn't really matter that he actually made no sense. And that is what it comes from the human being. Now, what I'm saying is that with Christian Bale, as a human being, you're lacking. So you didn't, and that is why, and you know you're lacking, which is why you made the apology about 3 years ago, because you know you blew it. Because you have to go in there like Michael Keaton did, and listen, man, you do what you want. Here is my take on what Bruce Wayne Batman is, and you go for it, like Heath Ledger did. So at the end of the day, it's like with our good friend Robert Pattinson, he's going to go for it. Of course he is, because why? Because of Joaquin Phoenix. Because of Joaquin Phoenix, everyone wants an Oscar now. So he's going to go for it. But you've got to now say, Robbie, as a man, do you have the resources as a human being to deliver this? And I'm saying no. So that's so I can go on record now. I'm saying no.
Well, BatVal, I don't know how you feel about this, but again, we've had.
I think he will be the closest to Keaton. I think depending on the variation, I might like it more, less, or equally. It's kind of hard to say, but I think he will be second to Keaton at the minimum. Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to bet on that.
You think he could beat Keaton?
Wait, hold on.
I think because of everything he has available, and because he's not the first one to do it, and he's like the 6th or 7th, I think that works towards his advantage. I also think he's a younger age, so I don't think he's peaked yet. So I think there might be some potential there. But I'm gonna take some of that risk and bet on that he's gonna deliver more than not.
So when you
wait, okay, but that's a bit
especially also because I don't think he was comfortable with his early success with Twilight, and I think he doesn't want to fail or risk his career being where he's worked so hard for it to be, to go back to that point where he was when he did the Twilight films.
Okay, fine.
So I think he does have something riding on it, and I think he's cognizant of that.
Okay, fine. So what are you saying he's going to be better than Keaton or not?
I'm saying it's going to be in the same vein. And similar, maybe more similar to Ryan Gosling, but I think it's in that school of acting,
Yeah, but what I'm
performance-wise.
okay, but we're talking about who is going to deliver Batman. So what I'm trying to gauge from you, because we're trying to say, okay, put
Well,
our cards.
Michael Keaton, just for some background, is one of my favorite actors. So any role he's in, I'm automatically in. Spotlight, whatever he's doing, he's one of those esoteric and eccentric actors. So his characters are usually interesting in a unique type of way. And there's usually not a Michael Keaton film that I don't like, or a Michael Keaton film performance that I don't like, even if it's a B film. So I'm biased towards Michael Keaton, and he was the first one to do it, and I was a child at the time.
Okay, so let's just say this: that.
But
Do you
in
think
comparison
that?
to everybody else, I think Pattinson will be better than everybody else.
Okay, listen, I've said that I think Patterson is going to be the best guy next to Keaton. So, okay, now let's take Keaton out of the way. Let's just say this simple thing. Do you think Robert Pattinson is going to deliver? You think he will deliver? Simple.
There's a 40% chance that he will be better and a 60% chance that he won't.
Okay, but do you think? Okay, chosen one, because I'm just trying to gauge.
But I'm gonna say yes. I think he's gonna deliver. I think that's the thing that has me more interested in this film than anybody else that's involved.
All right. So okay, chosen. Do you think he will deliver?
No. It's one of those things where it's like, and this is where I wanted to get some clarity, because we're talking about two different things. We're talking about delivering the Bruce Wayne aspect or the Batman aspect.
Let's say forget about, because we this.
Well, we have to go to Bruce Wayne
in general, because if you're like Bale and you have a fantastic Bruce Wayne and a horrible Batman, it doesn't count.
Exactly. Basically, you get into too much muddy water. Let's just say, listen, this guy delivered Batman. Okay, so we're not going to say who is the best Batman. So is it that do you think that this guy is going to deliver simplicity? Simple as that. Yeah, yes or no. And I'm saying no, and BatVal is saying yes.
Okay, but this is where I need to know where the 40 and 60, like where is your inspiration for the 40 and 60%? So why do I say 40% that he'll deliver and 60% that he won't? Yes.
Okay, so right off the bat, I'm not 50-50 on him. I'm 50-50 on the director, just because I think assimilation can work. I am in the corner of visionaries, and that's the ideal. But I think if you're a very good assimilator, you can pull something off just because of the nature of the subconscious. So I think that can work. I mean, the Joker film was an assimilation, I would say. I wouldn't say that was visionary, but it was an assimilation, and it was a good film. And that was an okay director. Spectacular actor and performance. So 40%, from what I've seen, I think no one's had influences of the animated series to work with as much as Pattinson will have in what this film project is. I think he will have elements that no one's had before him to touch upon, which gives him an advantage. Okay. I also think he has the research of everyone that's come before him, especially Bale and what not to do. And then I think he still has Michael Keaton to model. Like, what's to say he doesn't go and model Michael Keaton and pull some of that out of the hat? So, does he have to do what the original did and innovated? No, I would say Michael Keaton had a more challenging time, because the first to do anything is going to have the most risk and challenge and be the biggest innovator. And hats off to Keaton for doing it, having nothing to reference beforehand. But Pattinson has a lot to reference.
Okay, but
I just feel he has a 40% shot.
Okay, well, this is where I think. Well, here's my view. Just because you have a lot of material to reference, I think it also it goes back to what POH said. You have to have, and I'm paraphrasing here.
But do we know that he does not have that as well?
I don't know anything.
Can either one of you say 100% that he doesn't have that as well? If he does, does that push him over the edge?
Okay, but BatVal, that is the whole point of us making our projections. Yes, that's the whole point.
That's the thing. And again, I'm going off of the 2-minute and 30-second trailer that I saw.
Boom.
Okay, and I don't see anything in there that hints at that. I don't. Not from the Bruce Wayne angle, and not from. I mean, I told you months ago, the only thing I'm judging him on is everything out of costume. That's the
But
only
so,
thing.
but we do know for sure, based on what he said about his interviews with the role and referencing the '70s and the success of the Joker that just came out. We do know for sure, 100%, that that's what he's going to aim for, right?
He can
Here's the thing.
he can talk all he
Like
wants.
that,
He
but
can talk
no,
all he wants.
right? But we do know that that's the end goal. Now, whether he hits it or not, we do know he's heading in that direction,
Okay,
right?
I get you. Now, and here's the thing: if you thought Joker was a good film, you're gonna love this. I know that for a fact.
Chances are I might. Who
You
knows?
are going to no, it's not. If you thought the Joker was a good film, I'm telling you, 100% certainty, you are going to love this.
No,
It wasn't
but
my
trust me.
impression of the Joker, but I did think it was
No, but-
refreshing
no, but-
in the
Right, but
current
I'm
state of
off
films that we
Yeah,
have.
but chosen.
Wait, hold on, hold on.
Chosen, you have to
Hold on.
Chosen, you have to realize it's like you get some water in the middle of a drought.
No, I
So
get
in
I
comparison,
get it.
it was very
Of
it
course,
was great.
of course. But I'm just going off of what you say, and yes, you're absolutely right. You know, you're in the desert. You're not going to complain if the water is a little tart. Okay.
Oh, it was fantastic.
No, but chosen. We've actually never discussed Joker though, and to be honest, so just for the record,
Mm.
Joker is one of my favorite films of all time.
Why?
See, but that's a whole team because we've never actually done the Joker. That's a whole different conversation.
And I agree with that statement.
I don't. I emphatically disagree.
You know, like I believe that Joker is like for me, it's one of the best films I've seen in my life, and it's one of my favorite films of all time. And the beauty about Joker is that you need to see the movies that Todd Phillips people claim he copied. You need to see those films and see what he did with the things that they say he copied.
It could be argued he did something better because there was some more subconscious elements into
Exactly,
it.
because similar to how they said that, oh, this guy copied Kurosawa, whatever you call it, George Lucas plagiarized, Hidden Fortress for Star Wars. He plagiarized, samurais with their helmets and Vader. When you see what they say Lucas copied, and you see Star Wars, that's what makes him a genius, because you saw that.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
you chose to do this with that. But myself, anybody that can look at Joker and look at that film and not understand the incredible beauty of that film, I can't argue that with anybody. So that's what I'll say.
It's actually timeless.
It's incredible. The thing is, it is a timeless BatVal. It is a timeless film.
And that's my point is, how many timeless films have we gotten in the last 10, 15
30 years. 30 years.
And if you count the comic book genre, then it stands alone aside from Unbreakable.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, guys. I don't agree.
But I said,
Again, not as a Joker film, as a film.
As a
Just
film.
purely as a film. I'm taking the comic book fan out of it.
See, Chosen, I said and I think Halford has made this point as well about certain music. It's like, look, there are certain things that you either get it or you don't. If anybody watches Joker and wants to debate Joker, it's best left. Because and that is why they talk about some movies are timeless movies, some movies are not timeless. How does One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Dog Day Afternoon, different movies. These things, when the dust settles, in 300 years, 100 years, people will talk about Joker. That's what I'm saying. Now, you can't argue that. I can't debate that with you. It's one of the things that you think it's rubbish or whatever, it's just pointless, fine. Other guy think, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, there's a reason why people are walking and jumping down staircases in New York, and they're calling the cops because they're sick of it now.
Okay.
There's a reason for that. So,
okay, here's the thing. This one of those things.
It's like a fever dream in the third act. I mean, when you agree with that, right?
Here's the thing. Let's just back up here. A lot of it has to do with here's one thing, okay? Because there's a reason why I asked you why. Because there are a lot of people who put Joker on a pedestal, and you know this already, so we can sort of skip that response. But everyone who I talk to, and I try to poke and prod and extract from them what they think is so great about the Joker, I get nothing. Okay, you have put one thing on the table, and maybe we should have a Joker discussion.
There's a couple things.
No. I know there are many things, but the one thing that you put on the table, as far as what the creator of the film took and translated and put it through a machine and came out with something fresh, with the hom to whatever original.
I also don't think he understands it the same way Lucas doesn't understand Star Wars. I don't think he can do that again.
Bingo. Correct. Okay, yes. Chosen, please continue.
You don't think? Wait. You don't think who can do that again?
The director from the Hangover films that did the Joker, I think that was a one-off, like Lucas with Star Wars.
Okay.
I don't think he understands what it was, and I don't think he can do it again.
Okay.
But it was still done. So
maybe it was an anomaly in his creative.
Look,
so far.
Chosen. All I'll say, Chosen, is that if you want to go into a proper analysis of Joker, then this ain't the forum, because that's a 2-hour conversation.
No, I can't.
And it's 2 against 1.
Exactly.
It might be a little bit of a tough debate.
No, I mean, I don't mind that. I mean, it's not my first time, but it's just one of those things where, again, I would like to talk with two sensible people about that film and the good qualities, because I'm just saying, all of the conversations that I have had about that movie thus far, people have failed to get into specifics as to why this thing was so good. And
so let's get into the specifics.
No, we can't. Not here, because I don't have time.
Okay.
I don't have enough time to do that now. But what I'm saying is, I know that conversation isn't going to go that route with you two gentlemen, and I would love to do that. So we've got about 20 or 25 minutes. What do you guys? What do you guys want to go through? What do you want to do? It's an open forum. Where do you guys want
we could remember, we haven't quite touched on Zack Snyder's stuff that came out.
Okay.
Which I just find, I mean, you see, simply put, that trailer that Zack Snyder released, I mean, you did see what Darkseid looked like in the first shot, right?
Is that the trailer with just the song playing through the end?
Yeah, with a Hallelujah song, whatever you call it. It's, I mean, basically, when I saw that, all I could think in my brain is that I hope they're happy now. You all claim, oh, give him his vision, give him his show, give him his thing. And what I said 3 months ago to everybody on the forums, that was it Joss Whedon's fault to make Justice League as dark as The Exorcist, to have the same color correction as The Exorcist? Was it Joss Whedon's fault that he chose to use Steppenwolf as a villain? Was it Joss Whedon's fault that he chose to kill Superman in part 2 of Batman v Superman? Was it Joss Whedon's fault that he chose to cast 5 planks of wood? The only guy that can act in that whole thing is the Cyborg guy. You've cast like 4 planks of wood as Batman, Batman, Superman, Aquaman, and Wonder Woman. 4 planks of wood.
And that's one of the reasons I actually like Pattinson, is that when you look at all of the DC as a whole, none of them are actors, even in the adequate or bad sense. They're not even mostly actors, with the exception of The Rock, who is a charismatic personality, and sometimes that's enough. But Pattinson is like, the people in the Batman film are at least actors.
Yeah, but as Matt Reeves has said, it's a different universe. So he's completely distinguished himself from the whole Zack Snyder.
And probably for good reason.
Exactly. And look, it's such a mess. The whole deal is such, basically, we've wound up in a very scary world where people are so hungry for money and have such a lack of dignity in art that they're literally like, we're going to do what we want. And if it screws up, we'll just say it's an alternate universe. That's what they're now doing with everything. How can we live in a world where you're going to have Michael Keaton, what should we call it, Ben Affleck, and this 3 guys? I mean,
do you think it's a mistake for Keaton to be coming back for multiple films? Or let's talk about what that's going to look like. Will Keaton as Batman not be as viable as it was back when he did it originally? And will it take a little bit off of his legacy?
It's a bad decision. It's a bad, like, I was very sad. Like, see, on one, it's almost like Darth Maul coming back in Solo at the end of that Solo movie. I'm like, I've always been angry that Darth Maul died. Darth Maul is my greatest villain of all time. He's my number 1 on top of Darth Vader.
What?
Yeah. No. No. Darth Maul is my number 1. There's no one. There's nobody close. There's nobody close to Darth Maul for me. Now, for me, there's I've always been angry at that he died and the way he died. but I was disgusted the way they brought him back in Solo, and it's for all the wrong reasons. So with Michael Keaton, I'm like, man, I'm happy to see you again, but I don't want to see you again. I mean, like, if let's say there's going to be a one-off movie directed by Tim Burton called Batman Legends, yes, I don't want to see you in some trashy movie made by some silly upstart. I think the director has made like one or some half a movie or something, and they want to just capitalize on. No. See that? I don't like that. I don't like that. You know.
Interesting. I'm actually shocked that you put Maul above Vader.
No, because and see, Vader is really the holistic number one. But for me, it's almost like, who's your top villain? Who's your favorite villain? Like, the top technical villain is Darth Vader. But for me, it's like, which villain would you take on a desert
Vader,
island kind of thing, basically?
Darth Maul just in films or villains of all time? In any format.
The reason
villains of all time is Darth Maul. Yeah, villains of all time is Darth Maul. Yeah,
the reason why I was surprised was I know you're a big Victor Creed fan, and that's and for me the reason that made Victor Creed more terrifying, more than his mane and his claws and his teeth and his feral instincts, was the fact that this guy can talk.
Yeah. Basically, basically, like, Sabretooth for me, that's my comic top guy. So my main guy comics is Wolverine. My top guy villain is Sabretooth, and for other reasons, but as well as the reasons that you spoke, because of the guy's psychology. Mm-hmm. Now for me, and the dichotomy between him and Wolverine. But for me, it's like, when it comes to like just like villains of all time. Man, listen, chosen one, man. Darth Maul. Yeah. Look, that guy. I think that's a guy that he wasn't capitalized on. He wasn't used. He wasn't really under. So that's George Lucas, because he's a genius. He has a stunt guy called Ray Park, who's just meant to be doing like choreography, and then he just sees the guy and goes, "This guy. There's something about this guy. What the heck? I'll make him a henchman." Right. And that's why he was on the coup, because he wasn't even meant to be there. It was just, but because Lucas is a genius, there are things that, whether Lucas likes it or not, it's just going to speak to his subconscious. He sees it and he rolls with it. But you now inadvertently, you've wound up with what for me is visually, dynamically, choreographically, spiritually, metaphysically, the greatest thing that I've ever seen. It's like,
Can you guys go into who your favorite villain of all time is and why? I mean, you just did a little bit. C1, I'm curious to hear who yours is.
Oh man, I actually have never thought about that. I'd have to think about that, man. But again, just the formula for that, or the combination of that, would, again, you'd have to. Talking is a big thing, because that adds to the overall intimidation and fear factor. I'm going through quite a few people. We're talking. Fuhrer Bradley, Full Metal Alchemist, Brotherhood. We're going to, Sabretooth. We're talking, oh God, who else? I'd have to think about that, man. That's a tough one. But yeah, I hear. But what about you, BatVal? You have someone?
For me, it's going to be interesting, but it's probably a toss-up between Venom and Clayface. I'm a big proponent of visuals, and I think I'm going to give it. Well, yeah, no, it's a tie between Clayface and Venom.
Okay.
That's an interesting.
Side comment, POH. As far as casting the ideal Sabretooth, do you know who I had in mind? The Cobra Kai founder guy. What's his name?
With the blonde hair? With the blonde hair?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's basically like, the main guy, the guy from Karate Kid 1, basically.
Right. So again, we're talking dream casting ideal, when he's, in the appropriate age.
Oh, look, there are a lot of guys that can do. Like, I mean, the obvious one would be, for me, Ron Perlman. For me, that would be like, because a guy like Ron Perlman, he'd get it. Mm-hmm. Because for Sabretooth, you need to get it. Once you get it, then you get it. Mm-hmm. And it's like a guy like Ron Perlman, he'd just get it. The whole point of what makes Sabretooth like some psycho crazy villain. He'll get it,
Guys, I'm curious why, we talk about you talked about the Golden Gang and the new batch of guys, and then you mentioned the Goon Gang, yeah, and then you mentioned Mel Gibson. My question is, why isn't Del Toro Del Toro more involved in these type of things. It's right up his alley. He's kind of like the modern day Burton. And he has been in the past a little bit, and he hasn't really done a bad job. So
no, and I think that's because Joker never existed. You see, guys like this, they look at superhero movies and nobody believes that. A guy like Del Toro will be like, what's in this for me? Like, what do I get at? So a movie like Joker has changed everything. Because now you're going to have people that the reason that Matt Reeves' movie is going to be the way it is because of Joker. It's because of Joker. It's going to be something that is a lot that has more to it because the guy is a hack. He's going to be siphoning off Joker. You're going to now have directors that are going to be like, you know what? Because that movie made $1 billion, I could be, and even Todd Phillips said he's been lobbying to have a red label under the DC banner where you just have guys come in and just do what you want with this character. 60 mil, 50. What I've been saying for years. That idiot, Steven Spielberg, I'm like, mate, why don't you just get 50 million and just take some random dude and do a superhero movie? It will make more than all this rubbish we're getting from Kevin Feige and all this trash from Zack Snyder. That's all you got to do. But at the end of the day, it's like Todd Phillips. It takes Guillermo del Toro off his own back. And that's what makes Todd Phillips a special guy. Because off his own brain, he says, why don't I? Why can't I? Why shouldn't I? And that is always the difference in life between the status quo and what you may call the geniuses, the anomalies, the guys that actually move the world. Like who, unless you're Mel Gibson, would think, okay, we've seen Quo Vadis, we've seen King of Kings, we've seen Resurrection, we've seen Ben-Hur. How about I cross-pollinate this with like superhero stuff? How about I now say, what happened in hell for those 3 days?
You know, it's funny because I just made the connection, and you know what's interesting? Mel Gibson wasn't doing that until Joker came out. No, he wasn't thinking that way. Mel Gibson's been around for a while. He wasn't thinking of doing that, but who did that before Mel Gibson? And it was Joker.
No, but to be honest, I'll be honest. Mel Gibson has been talking about part 2 for this for about 6 years, for a while.
But was he talking about the superhero aspect of it and maybe making it like a genre type of thing?
No.
Or did he start saying that recently?
No, see, Mel Gibson never talked about the superhero. Mel Gibson talked about other stuff about superheroes. That the superhero stuff was from Jim Caviezel, and this was last year or a year. But I think last year when he said this is the greatest superhero story. But that is only in the light of all the superhero films, the Marvel stuff, not Joker. It was in terms of Justice League, Avengers. It's like all these guys talk about superhero stuff, but this is the greatest superhero movie ever told. That's what Caviezel said. Mel Gibson.
Do you think the two connect in any way in the type of thinking?
Which two are we talking about?
Joker and like say a sequel to Passion of the Christ.
No, because Mel Gibson was on that tip before Joker came out.
Okay, he was always on that track.
Yeah, Mel Gibson has been talking. I first heard about
if Mel Gibson never got ousted of Hollywood because of his tirade and all that, would he have been greater than Nolan, and would that have not left a vacuum for Nolan?
That's a brilliant thought. And the linkage I'll say is that had Mel Gibson not been cast out, Mel Gibson now would be like a revered shot.
Where Nolan kind of is. Like Nolan sort of entered that vacuum.
Yes, but here's what's happening. People are beginning to realize that Sam Mendes is everything that Nolan pretends to be, but without all the rubbish. That's what's happening. Nolan is beginning to get found out. You've seen just look at the trajectory of Sam Mendes and look at Nolan. And everything that Nolan is doing, Sam Mendes is doing it better. He's doing it better. And in terms of Mel Gibson, what is going to make this film, this Passion of the Christ 2, the most dynamically crazy thing you've ever seen, is the fact that he's been cast out, and this is his last hurrah. So basically, I'm actually very scared.
He's almost where Scorsese was. He's kind of where Scorsese was when he made Raging Bull, and he thought that would be his last film.
Oh well, yeah, possibly.
In a way, in that he's he might put a lot of interesting things into it.
Yeah, but things that Scorsese was never outcast on a moral level from Hollywood. Like,
it was self-inflicted almost.
exactly. And it was like, politics are like, Mel Gibson has been outcast on a moral level by insulting the people that run Hollywood. So and also making other racial things about blacks and everything. So this guy is in the netherworld. So that means that whatever this...
It's like he's in hell. What a perfect time to make the film.
Exactly. And Jim Caviezel has had his career destroyed because of being in Passion of the Christ. As he has said many times, his career stopped. So the truth is that what you have is, as you say, BatVal, it's a perfect storm. And what could happen with Passion of the Christ 2 is something that takes Hollywood and films in a very advanced and accelerated way. And remember, we've come to the end of this decade. This decade has been the Kevin Feige decade. You always have these sort of time things. So we've had Joker at the end of it. Who knows what is going to be ushered in the next 10 years? But it's interesting that at this juncture, you're going to get Dune, who's going to be very heavy-handed sci-fi, going back to that good quality, nicely cooked sci-fi. Then you're going to, and here's what I find very exciting. Hans Zimmer, he turned down Nolan to do Dune. Because he's like, Nolan was doing his whole, I'm so, you're my guy, I'm so lovely and cute, lovely. And he said, listen, man, Dune is an all-time favorite of mine. And I just cannot turn this thing down. And he turned down Tenet to do Dune. So you've got a lot of stuff pushing for Dune. You've got Hans Zimmer, who said he's just getting ideas in his brain every single day. The guy's going crazy for Dune. Dune is going to be something very, 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 very dynamic. Who knows what that's going to do? But it's interesting that you're going to have stuff like Dune, and you're getting stuff like Passion 2 coming out at the turn of this new century. You get COVID 2020. You've got Joe Biden, who completely ripped Donald Trump up in that speech, So you've got very interesting things happening at the turn of the century. So, things, I'm not sure how safe Kevin Feige and all his clowns and James Gunn, a man who cracks pedophile jokes, and somehow everybody has conveniently forgotten about that because he's doing some bloody suicide. I mean, look, basically, this world is very weird. But all these goons and clowns, things may be changing. The tide may be turning.
Well, I don't know. I just don't know.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting, man. Very interesting. But look, we'll see what happens. I mean, now we'll see what happens with that full trailer for this Batman thing. But as I said, we've all made our calls. I don't think he can do it. BatVal says he can. Mr. Chosen One says no. So
and essentially, we're all there watching it. We're all definitely going to watch it for sure.
Oh, look, come on, listen. See, I mean, look, come on, listen.
That's a given.
Look, it's one of those guys, like, when you see that, and that's the thing about
because the deciding factor was the trailer, right? That was the deciding factor if it was going to be watchable or not, which the trailer, would we all agree, did its job?
No, the trailer, no, it did its job. It did its job because it's like, for better or for worse, it's a hack, but it's hacked well. It's hacked well. And as I told Have Hope, that thing is gonna go down well with the fans because the fans don't really think, and it is such a tricksy trailer with so many tricks, because that's what these guys do. So basically, it's like Force Awakens trailer. That thing went down so well.
It had a little bit of everything for everybody.
Exactly.
But do you think it's going to be more like Force Awakens in that it's a homage and a rehash of different plot structures?
Yes,
but it's going to do its own thing and be an assimilation while doing its own thing.
It's going to be a Frankenstein, but it's going to be a Frankenstein that's going to be a better Frankenstein than the one that what's his face Abrams did, because Matt Reeves, he's just better than Abrams. Is an all-time cowboy. That guy's the all-time cowboy, man. So basically, this guy, Matt Reeves, actually has some abilities. So it's like, at the end of the day, that is why this is basically, forget about convincing anybody that this ain't good, because it ain't gonna happen. Because Matt Reeves, he's a real tricky customer. So by the time he's done this, people are gonna be saying, "Oh my God, it's so ingenious, it's so advanced."
Will people regard this equally or more than Nolan's trilogy, or
These guys,
will it sully Nolan's run a little bit?
no, this movie is a movie that finally puts the nail in Nolan's coffin. The only thing that Nolan is going to survive from Nolan is going to be Heath Ledger. This movie, as I told HH, is the one that's finally going to put the nail in Nolan's coffin. Between this and Tenet, Nolan, you're not going to hear from Nolan for another 4 years. Then Nolan's going to go back to making the movies that he should be making 20 years ago. If Nolan is clever or lucky, and he does okay with Tenet based on Black Lives Matter, J.D. Washington, all that rubbish, he's going to make a run for 007 and try to use J.D. Washington as the first black 007. That's what he's going to do because the guy's a trickster.
Oh no.
He's a trickster, and that's what he's going to do.
No, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. No.
When you think about it, you know that the sick thing about guys like Nolan is that if he did that with J.D. Washington, it probably would work. See, it's very annoying, but the truth is that in the modern world we live in today, you put all the components together, Nolan is a boring guy. He's bland, and that works for 007. So once he brings in all his little tricks and different things, and he brings in J.D. Washington, oh, it's a black Bond, it's a new world, hashtag Black Lives Matter, come on.
And the Bond franchise was always plot focused.
Yes, exactly.
So he could do that
yes.
like any day of the week.
Yeah. So look, it's one of those things.
All right, gentlemen. Well, we've had a very good talk.
Good one, definitely.
And I appreciate you both being on for the call. We need to do this more often. Okay.
Yeah, we should. But is this actually a show you've got, or you're just doing this? Or like, where does this get posted? Does this get?
Yeah, I haven't posted the last one we did. I think I'm just gonna post it on my YouTube channel.
Right.
And whatever. We'll see what happens. But yeah, this is just primarily just for chat. I'll send a copy to the Merc. Maybe he wants to upload it somewhere. But yeah, very good talk. I think it's customary to say this, but I do believe we should do more talks in the future. I like this group. So I don't know how you guys feel. I don't know what your guys' schedules look like.
Look, if schedule permitting, I'm always available. Chosen one. That's me.
Okay, cool. Because
me too.
Okay, good. Because I have a few different topics that I'd like to cover outside of just discussing Joker. I want to go back and watch it one more time before we tackle that beast, because I want to make sure I have all of them.
Listen, Chosen one. Let me admit to you, I think I've seen it about 20 times.
Okay.
I
just want to be clear. I did not enjoy my first watch. I didn't,
Chosen one, I'm fake. No matter all the rubbish I say, it's Batman. I've seen that thing like 20, 25 times, and I'm gonna go watch it again now.
Wow.
It's definitely an interesting beast. I think it's understated what it actually does.
Exactly, because that trailer is probably one of the trickiest trailers I've seen in my life. That guy, Matt Reeves, that guy is tricksy. Like Gollum says, he's tricksy. Very.
All right, man, we'll see. I'm just regarding this trailer, just to wrap everything up, bring us. I said it from the beginning. I knew what I was looking for going into this. There were two key moments for me after the car ran into the crowd, looking at Pattinson's face, and then the last when he takes off the helmet and he stares off into those are the only two things that I needed to see. So, going back to the question of, what BatVal posed, whether or not you think he's gonna
deliver.
The
answer is no. And here's the thing, I don't need to see another trailer for that, because
here's an interesting question to end on is, from each of you, what do you feel will be the good and bad of the finished product?
The good for me is that it's going to put a nail in the coffin of Nolan. It's going to bring.
It's like a chaser cleansing the palette.
Exactly. It's going to be something that's just going to be like, okay, guys, look, it's Batman, for God's sake. I mean, so that's the good thing. The bad is just obvious that it's not really going to do much more than that.
I mean, I'd have to agree with the good. It's going to wipe the slate clean, definitely. But the bad, man, I think it's one of those things where not to draw out this answer, but BatVal, we also had a conversation as far as what a Batman film can do in a specific environment, right? So I just feel that the reason why we haven't gotten close to what the definitive Batman should have been is because the game keeps getting reset, and that sort of perfect storm isn't forming, if that makes sense. It's like this was in production right when the Joker thing went off, right? So it's like I'm wondering how much influence it may have had over the tone of this, and to me it looks very similar. So I'm wondering it's like, what does it have to take for that perfect storm to happen? I think it has to take a collection of things, but again, it's almost like the timing is never right, and I think that's the bad thing. That this is also gonna, what shall we say, move the goalpost, back, and we have to keep waiting for that perfect storm. So, and I think the last time that perfect storm, or at least came close to formation, was the span between Schumacher's Batman and Robin and what we got with Batman Begins. I think that was the shot to get something crazy, but we didn't get it because we had someone in the director's chair who didn't really respect the character. That's just my opinion, but that's me.
Yeah, look, it's one of those things where it's like, it's one of those things that you're going to be in a situation where you just don't really know whether you're not going to know what's happened. It's going to come out and be like, okay, yeah, wait, it's one of those. It's sick. It's when that's what a hack like Abrams does. It's a disgusting thing. Big pomp and circumstance. Everyone's like, oh, wow. Then it goes, and it's almost like you feel like you've been someone has robbed you, because like there's nothing left. It's all empty. Like look at Star Wars now. Yep. You've come in, big money, angry. People are angry. You've killed Luke. You've completely raped Star Wars.
Yep.
You've made your money. You've run off, and where is the world now?
Yep.
Nothing. And that's what they're gonna do with Batman. You're gonna come in, gonna be a big thing. Oh, it's so different. Oh, it's so deep. It's it's so dynamic. It's so different. Oh, Robert Pattinson, he's so crazy. He's so crazy. Oh, whoa, look how mad he is. And then when it's done, it's just be done.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna have a Batman that wasn't really that great. He wasn't terrible, but it wasn't like he's changed the concept of what Batman should be. The suit ain't the kind of suit you're gonna want to wear to a Halloween party. I mean, look at the logo, for God's sake. I can't even tell what it is.
So let's say he's really good, right? But in that situation, is the fact that he's going to be doing it at the same time as Ben Affleck and Keaton going to sully people from Batman, irregardless of how good he is, or not?
I don't think so.
Just because they're all at the same time, do you think that's going to be the final nail for, like, let's say, if they want to reboot it again, people are going to be like, what, are you kidding me? We've seen 3 Batmans in the last 3 years. We don't want to see this again.
I haven't seen 3 Batmans though.
No, I mean, but we're going to see 3 Batmans with Pattinson, Keaton, and Batfleck. So, is that the final exposure point? Just because there's 3 of them, regardless of what they do, and the television series that they're spitting off of the Batman.
We are at a. What you have now is what you have with, it's almost like global warming or deforestation or whatever you want to call it. Human beings are greedy. And what they're doing now is that they're going to kill all this stuff because they're also greedy. But before they kill it, there's still a bit more left in the tank. So there's a bit of space because
you're breaking up. I'm not sure if anyone else. BatVal, do you hear him? Do you hear him breaking up?
No, I hear him.
Yeah, Basically, all I'm saying is that there's enough in the tank to get through this movie. But can this franchise survive a part 2, part 3? Ooh, I don't know. But there's enough in this first part 1 in terms of curiosity and in terms of the fact that people haven't really got Batman yet. They keep getting all these scraps, these weird bits. Like you get this weird kind of amalgamation of, Ben Affleck, where it's a good Batman, but it's a bland wooden cardboard. But see, that whole Ben Affleck thing is incredible. Like everybody said Ben Affleck was going to be rubbish. And this is my question to everybody. When they heard Ben Affleck was going to be Batman, what did you think he was going to do? Did you think he was going to walk in and be thin? Did you think he was going to walk in and be giggling and smiling and cracking jokes? Obviously, Ben Affleck is going to go to the gym, and obviously he's going to be very serious, and obviously he's going to frown a lot. That's what he did. When people say Ben Affleck is going to be rubbish, because they know he's going to do that. And they know that when he does that, he's still going to be rubbish, because he's still going to be Ben Affleck being very serious. And Ben Affleck was exactly what you thought he was going to be. He walked in there with his deadpan expression, and he did that, and that's all he did. How can anybody now pretend that, oh, he now became... Ben Affleck did exactly what you thought he was going to do. And then you have Zack Snyder put him in a suit and do a lot of fighting.
Well, see,
and that's it.
Well, this is the only thing that I am a little confused as far as where BatVal's coming from, because to me, all I needed were those images. So it's like, for me, I know what
the images in regards to Pattinson, or
in regards to Pattinson. I know where he's going in this trailer. And it appears, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
So you're asking what I see that excites me.
I guess what I'm asking is, do you think he's going to do something different than what we see in that trailer?
No, but here's what I will say. I think he will go to where the animated series is, where nobody has really done before. So Keaton, in a weird kind of way, let me phrase it this way. So with what Keaton did, he influenced, and out of that we got the animated series, right? So Keaton made an impact. He was an influencer, right? In life, you could either be the pool stick or you could be the pool ball, the 8-ball, right? So Keaton was the pool stick. He made an impact. Out of that, we got the animated series. And in a weird kind of way, I think Pattinson's version, because of the people involved and the time frame of when it's coming out and all the Batmans we've kind of seen, like Phantom of Hope was saying, is you always get elements, you always get pieces, but you never get the whole thing. You always, because Batman has like 50 shades of gray, so you always get every little shade and every interpretation that you didn't get before, but you never get the whole thing. And I think he's going to head in that direction of the animated series, which is what I grew up with, which was a direct result of Keaton, which is what I grew up with. So in a weird kind of a way, it's almost like you're going back to the well or the source, but from the other direction. Does that make sense? It's almost like you're going full circle.
Okay, so that makes sense. But this is okay. So then here's another question. When you say that they're going in the direction of the animated series, in what way is Pattinson going in the direction of the animated series? Like, what did you pull from the trailer?
It's all there. It's all there. So when you see the Batman in the animated series, you don't get the sense that he's the bulkiest ever, right? He's not a brawler and a bruiser, I wouldn't say, in his fighting, and it is more detective than some of the other ones, right?
Okay, but hold on.
The tone and the feel of the animated series is more gritty and intense, and his voice is very similar to Keaton's voice and Kevin Conroy's voice, right? Like the little that we see of Pattinson's voice, especially the line of dialogue that says "I'm vengeance," which is directly from the animated series.
Okay, but here's the thing.
It's just I'm picking up on. This is the interpretation. So I'm looking at it like we've gotten Keaton and Burton. We've gotten everybody in between. We've never gotten the animated series influences, which kind of is like an offspring of what Keaton and Burton did.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is it. I think this is the iteration and the version that's going to draw from that well. It might not draw from that well 100%, but because of what Matt Reeves is and what he will do and how he will draw from all wells, by happenstance, he's going to pull a little bit from that animated series well, just by the device of the mechanics of what he's doing, unbeknownst to maybe like a cognizant type of thing. You see what I'm saying? And because I see that new shade of that, I think that's going to appeal to me.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. Again, I'm just asking what in the trailer, I guess, led you to believe that they're going to pull from, like, when you say, because now you're saying a little bit.
For some reaon, the outfit reminds me of the animated series, the thinner Batman. Like, for some reason, to me, the visuals of it speak to that.
Okay, I did
the red logo with the WB and the red DC logo, and if you look at the animated series, the backgrounds were all red. and silhouetted.
Not
If you
all
look
of them, actually.
if you look at the Ape films with Matt Reeves, he does a lot of silhouetted shots.
Okay.
That type of thing.
So you speak. Well, I think they had actually changed because you had two different, like the animated series went on a 3-season run, and then they came back with the new adventures of Batman and Superman. The animated series, the original first three.
The original, right?
Actually, they didn't have the red background; they had the black background, and then that.
But the illustrations that they did were set to a red hued background.
No, they weren't. Not until the new adventures. That's when they switched to red.
It still seems that it's very much in that color scheme, though.
Okay, that's fine. So when we go back to the I Am Vengeance, sort of. So let me ask you this, because I believe you said that, that's directly out from the animated series, that line.
Yep.
When I believe there was a Comic-Con sort of promotion that Zach did where he directly quoted The Dark Knight Returns. Would you say that Snyder's interpretation of the older Batfleck type of situation?
But that's the thing. We have to ask, as a Batman fan, where do you come from, right? Like, I come from a mix of Tim Burton, Batman 89 and Returns, animated series, and fantasy. That's where I come from.
I'm only 3 years older than you. I come from exactly where you're coming from. Okay. I wish Have Hope was here, because then.
But don't you see those elements? Like, you have Catwoman coming down from the ceiling with the rope. You have her as a burglar. Like, is that not more like the animated series than any other version of Catwoman that we've seen doing anything else? It sort of is, just by the fact of what we've seen so far.
I get what you're saying, but just because you say it's more than any other version, we only have one other. It's like, for me, it's like you don't get bonus points for that. Of course, it's more than any other version.
So let me phrase it this way. Maybe this makes more sense. What Burton and Keaton did originally, right, is they created something. So that's the ignition point, right? They took the comics, they adapted it, they innovated, they ignited something, a fire, right? So you have a little fire, right? Now that fire, the animated series came around, and Paul Dini and whoever was involved built that fire up a little bit more, right? And they kind of added wood to that fire. And now you have a nice little blaze. And since that point, everybody forgot that there was a fire there. But now, if these, not so much Reeves himself, because Reeves, I don't think even knows what the animated series is or what it's about, or like, he's not cognizant. So not Reeves himself. But the combination of Pattinson and this 30-year-old actor that grew up the same time frame that we grew up, generationally, that just puts him closer to me and you.
Writer.
So if they were to come along and just take one piece of wood and throw it into that fire, I'm happy.
Okay. I mean, that's fun.
That's what I mean. Like, I don't see them as the be-all, end-all, but I'm seeing them as a step away from Nolan, because I left Dark Knight Rises with what Nolan did pissed off, and I haven't seen the film since. 100%. So when I see what they're doing with this, I'm like, okay, if you can simply, I'm not asking for much, but if they can bend and pick up a piece of wood and throw it into that fire that was started so long ago, I will be happy.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, and I agree, and I agree with the sentiment. But for me, you need more. That's not enough.
Well, it's the best you're gonna get. It's the best you're gonna get.
That's the current state of things, right? Like, that's all I can hope for. Like, it's not so much to ask for that you throw in one more piece of wood into this fire.
I get you, but I am never going to get to a place of complacency. That's not. No, I'm sorry. I'm always going.
But would you agree that it's progression, and that maybe baby step at a time we could get to a place?
See, that's a crucial point. That's a crucial point.
He easily could have come out and done the exact same thing as Nolan.
Look, BatVal. That is crucial. That's a crucial point. That is this progress, and that for me is one of the most important points. I think you've asked or you've suggested in this discussion, that is this actual progress, and that is why I keep coming back to the Goon Gang. The bad thing, which when children said, okay, what's the good, what's the bad? Okay, what the good is that it's wiping the slate clean. The bad is that nothing's really happened. You see, the thing is that the issue with this is that it's not going. See, you're saying it's a piece of wood, I'm
Actually,
saying that
a better metaphor is like if you have a machine sucking up all this sand, making a gemstone, and it picks up a little bit of gold, and now
you
it's
know,
diluted and there's a bunch of crap in there, but there's this little piece of gold that's in there.
see, for me is that the problem I have is that it's not doing enough. See, what Batman needs is for somebody like Chris Nolan to come in with Christian Bale and make the Batman that was the Batman to that teaser that he put out in 2000. You see, because
when you say someone like Chris Nolan, what do you mean by that?
I basically mean
I don't think he's the exactly wrong person.
I basically mean either Chris Nolan or Sam Mendes. You see, there's a certain kind of Batman that Chris Nolan teased in that first teaser, and that is what you need to actually set it in stone. You see,
but was that Chris Nolan teasing that though?
No, that is why he never got. So basically, there's a joke we crack with Half Hope and the Merc that Nolan never made the movie for that teaser. The very first teaser that came out for Batman, Nolan never made that film. But the thing is that Nolan is the only kind of guy, either him or Sam Mendes, that could ever give you that kind of teaser. It's a very specific.
But what do you mean by that? Like when you say the only kind of guy that could give you that type of thing, in what sense?
That's what I was about to say. That basically, there's, it's a bit like Superman the movie, the first portion of it. There's a certain kind of sensibility you have to get to where you're going for ground zero. Now, there's a certain kind of thing that is the ground zero Batman. See, if I made Batman, I like Tim Burton, I'm a stylistics person, it won't be the ground zero Batman. It'll basically very much be my take on it. The thing about Bale and Nolan is that they would give you, if Nolan just shut his face.
So you're saying you need a competent, all-time competent director with no vision?
No, you need a person like Nolan that does have vision. Sam Mendes has vision. You see, if Sam Mendes made a Batman film, something like Road to Perdition, something, there's a certain kind of sheen, a certain kind of gloss, a certain kind of cooking that you need to apply to Batman to get to that mainstream, bottom line, ground zero Batman, which is why I keep saying that Christian Bale is Batman. Christian Bale is the ground zero Batman. That is just Batman. Michael Keaton, who's my favorite, he's a take. He's a spin on it. Bale is Batman. Chris Nolan's Insomnia. That is Batman. That is Batman v. the Riddler. Robin Williams is the Riddler in Insomnia. That is Batman. That's the bottom line. Chris Nolan thinks that's not good enough. Chris Nolan thinks, oh my God, no, I've got to be big time. I've got to be big. And he ends up making the rubbish he makes.
So you're saying take out the blockbuster elements.
Take all that rubbish out. Take all that crap out. And things that is actually a lot of the feel of this Matt Reeves stuff is actually like Insomnia. That kind of feel.
I'm trying to understand why you would give it to someone like, say, Nolan and Sam Mendes versus someone like Burton or Del Toro.
Or David Fincher, exactly.
Because someone more visual. I'm trying to understand why you're saying ground zero. You're saying that it would be more easily acceptable to audiences?
No, I'm saying
that would be the take.
I'm saying that because they would make the most realistic Batman. You see, David Fincher will give you a Batman from the comics. He'll give you the big time Batman from the comics. He'll give you all that stuff. Nolan or David.
So that's the question: is you can either make a realistic film or a fantastical film, right? Why does everyone assume that realistic is always better when it comes to Batman?
Because of Superman. The Superman the first part of Superman, that first hour of Superman from Richard Donner, that isn't a comic Superman. That's not Superman from the comics. That's a film. That is what would happen if there was a planet that exploded and a guy landed in Kansas.
But you're talking more of quality of film versus genre of fantasy versus realism. Because
no, what I'm talking about.
The quality of film of Blade Runner, and it was Ridley Scott, and it was set in sci-fi or fantasy.
Okay,
it would qualify, wouldn't it?
Hold on. As much as I'm loving this, guys, we're going to have to be continued this conversation because there's no way we go down this rabbit hole and this thing isn't going to last another hour. Okay.
Oh, it's one of those things, man. It's one of the things. It's like yeah.
So let's go ahead and end it here. and I'm going to hit you both up midweek to see if you know, continue this or start a new. I actually have quite a few topics I want to talk with all of you about.
That one was a debate in and of itself.
Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and end that here. BatVal, POH, Sir Pete, aka Sir Pete. Thank you for this conversation and for being here. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Opened my eyes quite a bit, quite a few things. And yeah, the Batman. You know, interesting take.
Okay, so let me just say very quickly. It was all about basically Superman was out. What would happen if a guy landed in Kansas? All I'm saying is that Nolan would give you a situation that what would the world be like if there was a Batman in it? That's what I'm saying about Nolan.
Okay, yes, and that goes to I think anyway. Don't you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that goes to almost like even though Dr. Manhattan isn't realistic,
but to flip that, because you said it would give you a sense of what would the world be like if Batman was in it, right? I would argue that the opposite polarity of an approach to a film would be, what if this was the world of Gotham and you were in it? So you can transport a character.
Tim Burton. That's Tim Burton.
You can transport a character into our world, or you can transport us to another world.
That's Tim Burton, and basically Tim Burton has done that. So Nolan would give you the alternative.
Okay,
gotcha.
All right, guys, we're gonna have to end the show.
Yeah, cool.
And, yeah, enjoyed it. Great show, and we'll talk soon. All right, thanks, guys.
All right, man. Peace.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
See ya.